Mr. Calder, the divorce agreement from the safe, here it is. On the night of their 5th wedding anniversary, inside a softly lit restaurant, Sophie handed Ethan the divorce papers. 5 years ago, on the day Vivian and Ethan got their marriage license, she was the one who loved deeper, so deep that she pre-signed a prenuptial agreement and placed it in a locked safe. It stated, if she ever cheated, Ethan could walk away, no questions asked. Now, Ethan picked up the pen and signed his name without hesitation. Across the table, the seat that should have held her was empty. He stared at it with a hollow look in his eyes. "Give these to my lawyer, Blake," he said quietly. "Then book a hotel ballroom. I want a wedding venue arranged in advance." Sophie blinked, caught off guard. "Whose names should I write for the bride and groom?" He didn't hesitate. "Vivian Crestwood and Tristan Cade." A heavy silence fell. Sophie's fingers twitched around the folder. Her voice trembled. "Tristan, he was Miss Crestwood's first love, wasn't he?" Ethan gave a barely perceptible nod. She pressed on, hesitant. "And the wedding, how soon?" He turned to the window. Blue fireworks had been erupting over the city for the past hour. Now, as the final burst lit up the sky, it spelled out one final message. "Happy 5th anniversary, Vivian and Ethan." He watched it fade into the night, then quietly looked away and pressed his lips together. 7 days from now. And book me a one-way ticket to Norway, same day as the wedding. Norway? Sophie echoed, stunned. She paused, then said cautiously, "Sir, are you sure? Maybe you want to think this through." But she knew the story as well as anyone close to them did. On the day of their wedding license signing, Ethan had orchestrated everything. He wanted that prenup. And to get it, he had given Vivian what she wanted most, a future. Ethan's parents, Norwegian billionaires who'd long since retired abroad, invested $50 million into Vivian's startup. The condition? She signed the prenup. But there was more. The contract held a cruel clause: if Ethan ever felt betrayed, if he returned to Norway broken and alone, Vivian would be barred from setting foot in the country for the rest of her life. And the $50 million? It would go with him. No second chances. No chasing after him. No redemption. "I've made up my mind," Ethan murmured. 7 days later would be his birthday. He would leave Vivian behind. He would fly to Norway. And as his plane took off, somewhere back in that hotel ballroom, Vivian and Tristan would stand at the altar, at a wedding Ethan arranged with his own hands. To set her free. To walk away with nothing. To let her be happy, without him. As soon as Sophie left the restaurant, Ethan's phone buzzed on the table. A notification popped up. Vivian had just posted a photo from the company's official Twitter account. A dazzling shot of the blue fireworks exploding across the night sky. And she tagged him. "Happy 5th anniversary, my love. I'll love you always." Within a minute, the post exploded. Over 1,000 comments poured in. No wonder Stonebridge City's skyline was lit up for an hour tonight. Turns out Mrs. Crestwood staged the whole thing for her husband. 5 years and still so over-the-top romantic. This woman never misses. Last year, after her surgery, I heard the first thing she said when she opened her eyes and saw him was, "Your stomach's sensitive, did you eat lunch on time?" The nurses in the room were in tears. Buried in the replies, Vivian had added a comment herself. "Ethan is my husband. Loving and taking care of him isn't a choice, it's my duty as his wife." The comment thread beneath it turned into a waterfall of envy. And yet, the man at the center of it all sat in silence, staring at the empty seat across from him, his face blank. There had been love between him and Vivian once. They'd been together for 7 years, without a single real argument. For all that time, Vivian, CEO, powerhouse, heiress, had poured both her money and her heart into him. But a month ago, on a night she was away on a business trip, Ethan learned the truth. Vivian had sent him a voice message. But when he played it, it wasn't her voice that came through. It was a man's. "She's been back 6 months. One finger curl and she came running. She put together a blue firework show for me tonight. I hate blue. Waste not, want not, use it for your anniversary." At the time, Ethan didn't know who the voice belonged to. He found out 2 weeks ago. At a business reception, Vivian walked into a private suite, arm in arm with the man from the voice message. Vivian had introduced him as her brother. Tristan wore a polished smile and an effortless charm. His voice was magnetic, familiar. He reached out a hand and said cheerfully, "Hey. Been back over 6 months, and I finally get to meet you." That voice. Ethan went numb. The man's voice echoed in his skull, matching the one from the audio message. Every word. Every syllable. He excused himself early that night. Couldn't breathe in the same room. Later, after midnight, Vivian returned home. That's when Ethan received another message, from an unknown number. "Damn, the rooftop tonight was wild. Got carried away, left some marks on her. Gotta admit, my ex still knows how to please. Any position, she's game." He turned slowly to the bed. Vivian was passed out in their sheets, dead asleep. 2 buttons on her blouse had come undone. Red marks, fresh, scratched across her chest. And the shirt? White, soft cotton. The one he'd custom-made for their anniversary last year. His matching shirt folded neatly in the closet. On her collar, in thread he'd sewn himself, was a single word, wife. He remembered that night like it was yesterday. She'd hugged him tight, teary-eyed as she looked at the embroidery. "Every time I wear this," she whispered, "it'll remind me to keep other men at a distance. This body? It's only yours." Now, that same shirt reeked faintly of sweat and sex. A different man's scent clung to it. Today was supposed to be their 5th wedding anniversary. Ethan had arrived at the restaurant early. 5 minutes later, his phone rang. Vivian. She said she was setting up a surprise and wouldn't make it in time for their candlelit dinner. Told him to enjoy the fireworks on his own. And hung up. 2 minutes after the call, her Instagram notification pinged. He opened it. A photo of her, smiling across a candlelit table, holding hands with Tristan. Red roses. Wine glasses. Perfect lighting. Romantic in every sense. So, the tweet declaring her eternal love? She must have posted it while nestled in Tristan's arms. Ethan didn't respond to her digital love note. He stood, picked up his bag, and walked out of the restaurant. When he got home, he asked the housekeeper for a pair of scissors. In the quiet of their bedroom, Ethan pulled out his half of the anniversary shirts, the men's version of the couple's set. He sliced it. Strip by strip, until nothing recognizable remained. Then he pulled out their marriage certificate. Cut it into fine pieces. He stuffed it all into a gift box. On the lid, in sharp black ink, he wrote, "Second wedding gift." Just as he closed the lid, he turned around. And came face to face with Vivian, standing in the doorway. Vivian's face was glowing with sweetness as she reached for his hand. "Come downstairs," she said, tugging him gently. "I've prepared something for you. A surprise." Ethan followed her down the steps. Parked in front of the house was a large delivery truck. Its cargo door had been refitted into a theatrical prop, sleek, deep navy blue, shaped like a giant gift box. Vivian clapped twice. The box sprang open. Balloons, confetti, and ribbons burst into the air. And inside sat a blazing red Ferrari, shining under the floodlights like a jewel. 2 staff members stepped forward and raised a banner. "For Mr. Ethan Calder." The crowd that had gathered on the sidewalk gasped and murmured in envy. Vivian turned, smiling with pride. She held up the keys. "You mentioned in passing that you were thinking of getting a new car," she said softly. "I remembered. As your wife, it's my job to make sure you never have to ask twice." Ethan reached out to take the keys, then froze. On the right side of her neck, just above the collarbone, barely visible under a layer of concealer, was a faint purplish bruise. A kiss mark. His stomach twisted. He forced himself to take the keys, clenching them tight enough to leave indentations in his palm. Vivian caught the flicker of revulsion in his eyes. "What's wrong?" she asked, worried. "You don't like Ferraris? Or, is it the color?" He shook his head, jaw tight, eyes reddening. "No. The car's fine." What he didn't want was her. Relieved, Vivian smiled again. They walked back upstairs together. As they entered the bedroom, Vivian's eyes landed on a gift box sitting by the vanity. Before she could get closer, Ethan stepped in front of her and shielded the writing on the lid with one hand. She tilted her head curiously. "Is that for me?" Her voice was light with hope. Ethan forced a thin smile, the corners of his lips twitching with practiced restraint. "Yeah. But it's not ready yet. I'm still working on a second gift. I'll give them both to you, 7 days from now." He paused. "With what I know about you, I think you'll love it." Vivian's eyes lit up. 2 surprises in one day? She looked genuinely excited, until she paused, head tilted, brow furrowed. "Wait, what's happening in 7 days?" She stepped out of the room, pulling out her phone. "Ah, of course," she said suddenly, dialing her assistant. "I almost forgot, 7 days from now is Ethan's birthday." She laughed lightly into the receiver. "Start planning a massive party. No budget limit. He's thrown me huge celebrations every year, we're going all out this time. I won't let his birthday go unnoticed." She didn't see him standing behind the door. Didn't see the look on his face, ice cold, unreadable. 7 years together. Vivian had never once forgotten her own birthday. Not once. But this year, with Tristan back in the country, she forgot his. Fine. He'd play along. He wanted to see it too, that birthday party she was so carefully planning. What expression would she wear when the guest of honor never showed? Ethan pulled out his phone and texted Sophie. "Find out where Vivian's throwing my birthday party. Then book the wedding venue 1 floor above it." "Understood, sir." He slipped the phone back into his pocket and turned toward the bathroom. Just then, Vivian, about to re-enter the bedroom, got a call from her assistant, Evan. She answered it just outside the door, close enough for Ethan to catch every word. "Right, thanks for the reminder," she said quickly. "Tonight I'm taking Ethan out for barbecue. If we skip it, he'll be upset." "Already made the reservation to match his taste?" "Great. I'll bring him." Ethan stood motionless in the doorway. His face unreadable. Vivian burst in moments later, plucked the robe from his hands, and tossed it aside with a grin. "Change of plans," she said brightly. "We're going out for barbecue. I asked the owner to start grilling already, it'll be ready by the time we get there." Barbecue. The tiny restaurant across from their old university, he used to eat there weekly. Years ago, they'd had their first encounter right outside it, over a harmless misunderstanding. 2 years later, they got married. Every anniversary since, Vivian had insisted they return to that spot, same booth, same meal, same little ritual. It used to be second nature for her. Now she needed reminders from her assistant just to remember it was a thing. An hour later, their black Bentley pulled up outside the modest, slightly run-down barbecue shop. It stood out like a private jet parked beside a lemonade stand. Across the street, a YouTuber was live streaming and froze mid-sentence when she spotted them. "Oh my god, guys. It's her. It's Crestwood," she squealed, phone trained on the car. "Look, actual power couple alert. There's a rumor she comes here every anniversary with her husband. It's real. This is real." Vivian stepped out of the car first, then reached back for Ethan's hand. As they crossed the sidewalk, she noticed his shirt collar was slightly turned. She stopped. Smiled softly. And on tiptoe, she reached up to fix it for him, fingers brushing his neck as a crowd of onlookers watched with open adoration. A few female college students squealed nearby. CEO wife fixing her husband's collar? That's so cute. Seriously, goals. Wishing you both forever love. Ethan stared down at her, unmoving. Then he turned to the crowd and gave them a smile, polite, distant, cold. Vivian didn't notice. They walked into the restaurant together. Same as every year, they were seated by the window. Same table. Same view. Only this time, everything had changed. Vivian glanced toward the counter. "The barbecue ready?" she asked the owner warmly. "And can we get 2 Cokes? My husband loves that combo." "Coming right up," the woman beamed. "Just off the grill." The couple was well known here. Only minutes ago, the shop owner had told her husband, "Don't let the late hour fool you. Those two always show up for their anniversary." And here they were. The owner's wife, round-faced and motherly, brought the food over with a radiant smile. "5 years now," she said fondly. "Still so in love. Mrs. Crestwood, when are you two planning to have a baby?" Vivian turned to Ethan with a soft blush on her face, eyes gleaming. "If it's up to me," she said playfully, "I'd say, by the end of this year. Let's have a baby." Ethan stared down at the plate in front of him. Hot barbecue. Familiar smell. Familiar memories. He said nothing. Vivian gently placed a skewer onto his plate, her voice light as ever. But just then, a man walked into the restaurant. "Excuse me," he said, nodding politely, "Ms. Crestwood, your car was scraped out front. You might want to take a look." Vivian's brows pinched in annoyance. "Seriously?" she muttered. "All right, I'll go check it out." She turned to Ethan. "You start without me. I'll be quick. And don't go ordering anything cold, your stomach doesn't do well with ice." Her words floated through the dining room, drawing admiring murmurs. "Did you hear that?" one girl whispered to her friend. "She remembers his stomach can't handle cold drinks. That's love. She's not just gorgeous, she's attentive, loyal, nurturing. If I were Mr. Calder, I'd feel like the luckiest man alive." The shop owner gave Ethan a thumbs up as he refilled their water. "You really hit the jackpot," he said, smiling. "Smart, sweet, stunning, women like that are rare." Ethan offered a thin, bitter smile. "Yeah," he said quietly. "1 in a million." Not that he'd ever met one. He turned away from the table, eyes shifting toward the window. Outside, he saw Vivian step out with the man. They exchanged words, he couldn't hear what, but Vivian nodded, then walked briskly across the sidewalk. Not to their Bentley, but to a sleek black Aston Martin parked beside it. Ethan's gaze narrowed. He recognized that car. It had shown up 2 weeks ago, at the party. Driven by Tristan. The license plate matched. Exactly. Same sleek black Aston Martin. Rumor was, it had been a welcome back gift from Vivian to Tristan. Estimated price, $3 million. Right in the same league as the red Ferrari she handed Ethan earlier. Ex-boyfriend. Husband. First love. Current partner. Vivian had a remarkable talent for balance, lavish, equal opportunity love. Ethan couldn't see what was happening inside the car. The windows were tinted too dark. He turned away, jaw tight, when his phone buzzed again. Unknown number. He hesitated, then picked up. A voice filled the line. Familiar. Teasing. So you finally got smart, sent someone to drag me out. Vivian. Her voice dropped into a playful pout. You had my assistant track me down. I told you, I'll come over once he's asleep. Then another voice. Raspy. Tristan. There was no mistaking the heat buried in his tone, alongside a thin layer of frustration. I can't stand it, he murmured. Knowing you're spending your anniversary with him, knowing what you two might do tonight, it's driving me crazy. Vivian gave a soft, knowing laugh. Jealous already? I've been in your bed all week. You think I've got anything left for him tonight? Besides, she added coyly, didn't you take me 3 times just 2 hours ago? Still not satisfied? Tristan groaned. I want more. Drop him off and come to me. Fine, she whispered. Trail behind his car when we leave. We'll do it in yours. You're impossible. The call ended with the wet sound of kisses, messy, urgent, intimate. Ethan's hand trembled as he ended the call. The sizzling meat on the table blurred in front of him. His stomach churned violently. A sourness crawled up his throat. Something inside his chest twisted, tight, burning, relentless. A nausea that felt emotional, physical, all-consuming. He stared down at the plate. Picked up a fork. And began stabbing the meat into pulp. 30 minutes later, Vivian returned to the table. She took one look at the untouched food, then at Ethan's ghost-pale face. Her heart skipped. You look awful, she said, alarm rising in her voice. What's wrong? Are you sick? I'll take you to a doctor right now, come on, let's go. She reached for him, but he turned his head, refusing to look at her. I overheard something disgusting, he said, voice flat, eyes dull. Lost my appetite. Her brows knit together. What did you hear? He didn't answer. Just stared at her, red-rimmed eyes heavy with something she couldn't read. You don't want to know, he muttered. Vivian opened her mouth, confused. She reached out instinctively, trying to hold him. Ethan flinched away like she'd burned him. He stood suddenly, his chair scraping back with a sharp screech, and strode toward the door. He flagged down a passing taxi and climbed in without looking back. Ethan, wait. Vivian rushed out, waving her arms as the cab pulled away. It didn't stop. Without hesitating, she dove into the Bentley, gunned the engine, and sped off after it. Ethan sat in the back seat of the taxi, his eyes fixed on the rearview mirror. The scene playing out behind him was almost laughable. Vivian's Bentley tailed the cab relentlessly. And right behind the Bentley? The same black Aston Martin. The 3-car procession weaved through traffic and slipped into the gates of their luxury residential estate. Once inside, Ethan stepped out of the taxi without a word. Vivian rushed from her car, hurrying after him. She caught his wrist, her grip soft, anxious. Sweetheart, why are you upset? She asked breathlessly. Is it because I left dinner to take care of the accident? I didn't mean to ruin the night. Ethan lifted his head and stared at her. She looked back at him with those wide, delicate features, filled with concern, remorse. But not a trace of guilt. Not the kind that comes from being caught cheating. He gave a quiet, ironic nod. Vivian sighed, brushing hair behind her ear. It's my fault, she said softly. I handled it badly. Next time, no matter what happens, even if my car gets totaled, I'll stay with you. Always. She reached for his hand again, clasping it gently in both of hers. Her voice dropped lower, cautious. I just got a call from Evan, she said. An important client fell from a balcony. Critical condition. I need to head over right away, okay? Ethan squinted slightly, reading her too easily. There it was, buried beneath her helpless expression, a flicker of excitement. Of urgency. She couldn't wait to leave. Couldn't wait to lie. Even a fake tragedy would do, so long as it bought her freedom. He pressed his lips into a line. Didn't argue. Didn't call her out. Just offered a flat, disinterested, okay. Then turned and began walking. But not into the house. He veered left, toward the parking garage. There, under the sodium lights, the black Aston Martin waited. Inside, the windows steamed slightly. Pressed against the driver's seat was Vivian, entangled in Tristan's arms. Ethan stopped. Watched. Tristan's eyes were dark, hooded with lust. I changed into the butler outfit, he whispered, voice low and thick. Even brought condoms. After all these years, I still remember what gets you off. Vivian's breath hitched. Her eyes gleamed with delight as her hand slipped beneath Tristan's coat, eagerly exploring. How many times are you planning to take me tonight? She whispered. Show me the outfit, I can't wait. He caught her hand, smirking. Her eagerness only fueled him. Not here, he murmured. You like thrills, don't you? Let's take it lakeside tonight. Vivian blinked in surprise, then gasped with giddy disbelief. Tonight? At the lake? Her voice was rising with excitement. You're really going there? It's your birthday tomorrow, isn't it? He said, his throat tightening. This night, the outfit, everything's for you. The car engine roared to life. The black Aston Martin slid smoothly out of the garage, vanishing into the night. And Ethan stood perfectly still, watching it disappear, alone under the pale garage lights, his hands curled into fists. Ethan's phone buzzed again. A new message. From Vivian. He opened it. Just a pin. A location. By the lake. 30 minutes later, Ethan sat alone in the back of a taxi. Out the window, just ahead, was the same black Aston Martin. Its sunroof was open. And within seconds, the car began to rock. Hard. Back and forth. Rhythmic. Exposed under the silver moonlight. A few late-night joggers had stopped to watch, their voices drifting into the quiet night. Damn, that's wild. Luxury car, lakeside view, and look at her. Gorgeous. She knows how to have fun. Is that a butler outfit? Jesus. That man's living the dream tonight. Ethan's eyes burned. He kept watching. Silent. Motionless. His hands trembled. He lifted his phone and recorded a 5-minute video, no sound, just the shaking car beneath the stars. Then, with a voice so hoarse it scraped his throat, he sent the clip to Sophie. Play this at the wedding. Then he called his mother. The moment she picked up, Ingrid heard it. That slight tremble in her son's voice. The hollow pause. I'm flying to Norway, Ethan said. 7 days from now. I want to come home. Ingrid's brows knit instantly. Is Vivian coming with you? No, he said. Just me. Ingrid exhaled slowly. She didn't ask what happened. She didn't need to. All right, she said gently. Don't be sad, Ethan. I'll be at the airport. Later that night. Sometime past 3 a.m., the front door banged open. Vivian had returned, loud, clumsy, reeking of expensive wine. Her heels clicked through the house like gunshots. Ethan had been half asleep. Her noise stirred him awake. Vivian stumbled into the bedroom, crawled onto the bed, and wrapped her arms around his face, pressing messy kisses to his cheeks. Her breath was warm and tinged with alcohol. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe just fear. But her voice was unsteady and urgent. I love you so much, baby. You can yell at me, hit me, scream at me, just never leave me, okay? You're all I want, Ethan. I'd never cheat on you. Ethan lay beneath her weight, eyes wide open, cold. She hadn't even bothered to cover up the faint love bite still visible on her neck. But her eyes, the desperation in them, looked real. There was nothing false in her tears. No hesitation in the way she clung to him like a woman terrified of being left behind. The next morning, Ethan woke with a headache and a strange heaviness in his chest. Vivian was already up. She handed him a prepped toothbrush. Warm rinse water. Fresh clothes laid neatly out on the dresser. All chosen to his usual taste. Not a thread out of place. She walked down the stairs with him, her steps light, voice cheerful, as if nothing had shattered. As if the night before had never happened. Over breakfast, Vivian's phone buzzed on the table. She glanced down at the screen, then looked up at Ethan with a soft, apologetic smile. I won't be home tonight, she said casually. There's a party I need to attend. Ethan paused mid-chew. He didn't ask. Didn't press. Didn't remind her what day it was, or that she'd already lied twice this week. He simply nodded. Okay. Once she left, Ethan called a cab and followed at a quiet distance. 20 minutes later, Vivian's Bentley rolled into an upscale residential neighborhood, tree-lined streets, modern architecture, clean sidewalks. Waiting near the gate was Tristan, dressed in a sleek gray coat and a matching scarf. Handsome, polished, charming as ever. He spotted the Bentley and waved with a boyish grin before slipping into the passenger seat like he belonged there. They sat in the car for a while, clearly lingering. Eventually, the vehicle pulled back onto the road and drove off. Ethan's cab followed at a careful distance. 30 minutes later, the black Bentley came to a stop outside a boutique bridal photography studio. Tristan climbed out first, casually straightening his coat. When Vivian stepped up beside him, he reached out and took her hand like they'd done it 1,000 times. They walked in together. A hostess at the front recognized them immediately. Miss Crestwood, Mr. Cade. We've cleared the studio in advance, let me show you the styles you'll be shooting today. Inside the car, Ethan sat frozen. No expression. No movement. But the cold had started to bloom again, like it had by the lake. Creeping through his veins, silent and sharp. Then his phone rang. He glanced down. Logan. He answered with a flick of his thumb. Where are you? Logan asked, upbeat. I'll come meet you. Ethan didn't hesitate. He named the location. There was a pause on the other end of the line. A bridal studio? Logan said slowly. Wait, you and Vivian are doing another shoot? Damn. 5 years married and still taking wedding portraits? That's some next-level love, man. I'm jealous. Ethan's lips parted. The words came out dry. Detached. She's not taking them with me. Another pause. She's what? She's with someone else. The line went dead quiet. Then Logan's voice came back, lower, tense. She's cheating? With who? Tristan, Ethan said flatly. He came back into her life a few weeks ago. I'll be there in 20. Exactly 20 minutes later, Ethan stepped into Logan's car and shut the door. For a long moment, Logan said nothing. Then, quietly. Tell me everything. And Ethan did. From the moment Tristan returned. To the voice message. The lake. The fake alibis. The kisses in the car. The matching Aston Martin. And now, wedding photos, like he never existed. Logan listened in silence. His hands clenched tighter around the steering wheel with every passing word. Ethan didn't speak for a moment. Then, without emotion, he tapped his phone and hit play. From the speakers came Tristan's voice, lazy, smug, unmistakably intimate. "She's been back 6 months. One finger curl and she came running. She put together a blue fireworks show for me tonight. I hate blue. Waste not, want not, use it for your anniversary." The recording ended in silence, thick and heavy. Ethan gestured toward the bridal studio just ahead, his smile bitter and cold. "There," he said quietly. "It's Tristan's birthday today." Vivian decided to celebrate by taking wedding portraits with him. Logan turned toward the glass storefront. Inside, Vivian stood close to Tristan, smoothing the lapel of his tuxedo. Her expression was soft. Her fingers moved with delicate precision, as though she were sculpting something sacred. Logan's jaw tightened. "Okay. That's it. I'm gonna knock their perfect little faces into next week." He rolled up his sleeves, already halfway out the door when Ethan caught his arm. "Wait," Ethan said sharply. "Let's see how far they're willing to go." 30 minutes later, the couple exited the studio. Tristan in a crisp black tux. Vivian in a snow-white, cinched wedding gown that hugged her waist perfectly. They held hands. Slipped into the Bentley like newlyweds heading to a reception. Logan sat beside Ethan in the car, fists clenched so tight his knuckles turned white. They followed. Eventually, the Bentley pulled up to a secluded lakeside venue. To avoid paparazzi or curious passers-by, the area had been roped off ahead of time. The photographers were already there, waiting with polished equipment and forced smiles. "Miss Crestwood, Mr. Cade, right this way," one of them said, oozing flattery. "You two are stunning together. Honestly, the most photogenic couple I've ever worked with." Tristan wrapped an arm around Vivian's waist and chuckled. "Well, I've got great taste," he said proudly. "My wife's a knockout." Vivian playfully smacked his arm, eyes twinkling. For the next 30 minutes, they cycled through 3 outfit changes, each more elaborate than the last. The wind was sharp off the lake, biting through the thin fabric. Between takes, Vivian reached for a thick wool coat and draped it over Tristan's shoulders. When he looked tense or off, she murmured encouragements, soft and steady, until he relaxed into the camera's gaze. And then, just when the session seemed finished, Vivian turned. Kneeling down in the icy grass, wedding train pooled around her, she pulled out a bouquet of long-stemmed roses and a velvet box. Tristan froze. Vivian looked up at him, her voice clear, unwavering. "You once told me you were jealous of Ethan," she began, "because I proposed to him. You said you didn't need that from me. That you understood my situation. That you didn't want to pressure me." Her eyes shimmered. "But I don't want you to feel like second best. You've waited long enough. I won't let you feel overlooked, not for one more second." She opened the ring box, revealing a sleek platinum band. "Marry me," she said. "Let me be the one who asks this time." Tristan's eyes went glassy. He dropped his arms to his sides, stunned. Then he nodded, again and again. "I do," he whispered. "Yes. Hell yes, I want to marry you." The camera crew erupted with cheers. "Say yes. Say yes. Now that's a power couple." In the car, Ethan sat stone still, his face drained of all color. His breath fogged the window. But the rest of him was ice. Every cell in his body had gone cold. 5 years ago. Vivian had knelt before him in a white gown nearly identical to the one she wore today. The roses had been just as red. The ring box, just as carefully chosen. Her eyes? Brimming with tears. "I'll only ever love one man in this life," she had whispered, voice trembling. "No one else will ever get close to my heart. Please. Please marry me. And then the words that echoed like a curse. If I ever cheat on you, I swear I'll die. Now, in the back seat of Logan's car, Ethan let out a broken laugh. Twice. Dry. Short. Then the laugh cracked. And the tears came. He didn't sob, just sat there, shoulders shaking, as if his whole body had gone hollow. Because it was all a lie. The promises. The love. The tears. Even the truth she claimed to swear on. Everything rots eventually. Logan looked over, face full of helpless rage. His voice softened. They're leaving. You want to keep following? Ethan swallowed hard. His throat felt like sandpaper. Yeah. He blinked, eyes rimmed with red, and turned back to the window. I want to see where else they go. An hour later, the Bentley pulled up outside a high-end restaurant in the heart of Stonebridge. Prime location. Lakeside views. Discreet and expensive. Even now, off hours, the best window seats were fully reserved. Each table was separated by elegant screens for privacy. Vivian had chosen this place well. She knew how to hide. Ethan watched from the street as she and Tristan entered. Then he slipped away, quickly purchasing a fitted, mature-looking outfit. Button-down shirt, sport coat, slacks. Mask and cap to finish the look. By the time he returned, Logan had already greased a few palms. He'd secured the table directly behind theirs. Ethan and Logan sat down, silent. A moment later, a middle-aged couple, mid-50s, modestly dressed, were led by a server to Vivian's table. The man had Tristan's jawline. Same sharp eyes. Logan leaned in, voice a whisper. Are those Tristan's parents? Ethan didn't reply. He simply reached into his coat, pulled out his phone, and angled it between the panels of the privacy screen. Click. 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 The timing was perfect. In one photo, Vivian was handing something across the table. A sleek, black Amex Centurion card. Right into the hands of the woman who looked like Tristan's mother. Logan let out a low, incredulous hiss. Jesus. Big spender, huh? Buying the in-laws already? Ethan lowered his phone, eyes dark, unreadable. Let's go. He stood. Not another second. Not another breath in this place. Downstairs, the air hit colder than before. Logan turned to him. I'll drive you back, just say the word. Ethan shook his head. His voice was calm, but distant. I need some space. I'm not okay right now. Logan didn't argue. He just watched his friend walk into the night, alone. I get it. Just be careful, all right? Ethan didn't turn around. He raised a hand in the air, half a wave, and kept walking. Ethan wandered alone down the boulevard. The temperature had dropped. His coat was thin, barely a barrier against the cold. But the chill in his chest made the air feel warm by comparison. His hands were stuffed in his pockets, feet moving without purpose. That was when his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. A message from Vivian. He opened it. 3 photos filled the display. The first, Vivian leaning against Tristan's chest, her smile tender, his hand cradling her waist. The second, a kiss. Their lips locked, eyes closed, the kind of kiss people describe as meant to be. The third, Vivian on one knee, roses in hand, as she looked up at Tristan mid-proposal. He was beaming. Cocky. Victorious. And beneath the images, a message. From Tristan. We took our wedding photos today. She proposed to me in front of everyone. I was really moved. She even insisted on meeting my parents. We didn't sign anything official, but we ran through the whole wedding just the same. No shame. Just pride. Just a man parading what he'd stolen. Ethan stared at the screen. Said nothing. He didn't respond. Didn't rage. He simply forwarded all 3 wedding photos to Sophie. Then he attached the photos he'd taken earlier, the dinner with Tristan's parents. Vivian handing over the Centurion card. And the full transcript of his messages with Tristan. Play these at the wedding. When it was done, he slipped the phone back into his pocket. And kept walking. He didn't notice the street. Didn't hear the engine. Didn't see the car until it was too late. A black sedan, spinning out of control. Bang! His body lifted from the pavement, then slammed down 2 meters away. Everything went black. A long time passed. When Ethan opened his eyes, the world was white and sterile. The stench of antiseptic filled his nostrils. His head throbbed. A distant beep echoed from a monitor nearby. He was in a hospital. Vivian was the first thing he saw. She was standing beside the bed, eyes red and wide, her face flushed with panic and something dangerously close to love. "You're awake," she whispered. "God, are you okay? Is anything hurting?" She stepped closer, reaching for his arm like it might disappear. He turned his head slowly. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered in his blurred vision. And then he looked at her. Really looked. Her expression was full of worry. Her hands trembled with urgency. Her entire body leaned toward him like she would gladly take his place in that bed if she could. And still, all he could see were the photos. The kisses. The lies. All he could feel was nausea. "Vivian Crestwood, which version of you is real?" She hovered beside the bed, voice anxious. "Why aren't you saying anything? Are you in pain? I'll go get the doctor." She turned to rush out, but Ethan reached out and caught her wrist. His voice was raspy, broken. "Why are you here?" Vivian froze. She hesitated for a moment before answering. I was having dinner with Tristan's parents," she said quietly. "When I got the hospital call, I panicked. I didn't think, I just ran out on them." She looked down, her voice softening. Thank God you're okay." But Ethan's grip on her wrist didn't loosen. His gaze burned into her. Not with anger. Not with love. But with something far more dangerous. Clarity. Vivian stood by his hospital bed, phone buzzing in her pocket. "I was having dinner with a client," she said softly. "Big deal, we're about to close. When the hospital called, I left immediately." Ethan's gaze didn't waver. "You just got back from the client dinner?" She pinched the bridge of her nose, pretending fatigue. "Yeah. It's been a long day." Ethan slowly closed his eyes. Didn't answer. Vivian sat back down beside him. The room fell quiet, save for the steady beep of the heart monitor. But the silence didn't last long. Her phone vibrated again. Then again. She silenced it with quick fingers and shot off a message under the blanket of her palm. 1 minute later, she stood. "I just remembered, I forgot something urgent back at the office. I'll be back soon, okay?" She didn't wait for an answer. She was already gone. Not 10 minutes later, Logan stepped into the room. His expression was tight. Pissed. "You'll never guess who I ran into on the way up," he said darkly. Ethan pushed himself to a half-sitting position. "Vivian?" Logan gave a humorless snort. "Third floor's the urology and fertility wing," he said. Elevator doors open, and there they are, Vivian and Tristan. Together. He sat down hard, jaw clenched. I followed the crowd out. Couldn't help it. Next thing I see, Tristan's holding a prenatal report like it's a damn Oscar statue. Telling her she's gonna be a mom. The room went still. Ethan didn't speak right away. His eyes lowered, gaze resting on the white hospital sheets. "She's pregnant," he murmured. Logan blinked. That was it? Not even a flicker of rage? "Okay, I'm officially worried," Logan said, frowning. "You're not mad? Not flipping out? What, did the car hit your brain?" Ethan smiled faintly. His lips were pale. Almost blue. "You don't know," he said quietly. "She can't have children." Logan froze. "What?" 3 years ago, we tried. A whole year. Nothing." Ethan stared off into the distance as if remembering someone else's life. "I thought it was me. Booked a full fertility workup. She came with me." The smile vanished. "When the results came back, it wasn't me." He swallowed hard. "The doctor said Vivian was infertile. Something about her endometrium. It couldn't sustain a pregnancy. I didn't sleep that night. Just kept telling myself it didn't matter. That loving her would be enough." His fingers clenched the blanket beneath him. "And to protect her pride, I even asked the doctor to lie. Told him to say I was the problem. That I needed time to balance my system. So no one would look at her differently." Logan's breath caught. He didn't say anything. He couldn't. "And now?" Ethan added, voice soft, bitter. "Now she's pregnant." Jumping into Tristan's arms like she just won the lottery. He looked up. There were no tears. Just an emptiness so deep, it seemed to echo. "All those years I protected her, all I did was protect a lie. Holy shit." Logan almost jumped out of his chair. He rubbed his hands together, eyes glinting, a grin spreading slowly across his face. "I've got it," he said. "You're moving to Norway in 5 days, right? Great. We play dumb." Ethan looked at him, quiet but curious. "Vivian's little pregnancy fantasy?" Logan continued. "Pretty sure that's Tristan feeding her bullshit. Let's just sit back and enjoy the show. And when the time's right?" He grinned wider. "We mail her the real diagnosis. Her medical report. You know, the one that says she can't get pregnant? I want to see her face when the fantasy collapses. Let's see if she still wants to marry her little baby daddy, then." Ethan didn't respond right away. But the faint smile tugging at his lips said enough. The next morning, Vivian didn't come. No texts. No calls. Ethan didn't seem surprised. That afternoon, Sophie arrived with the latest wedding logistics, florals, guest list confirmations, final audio setup. When she finished, she hesitated. Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Say it." Sophie glanced at the door, then lowered her voice. "Earlier today, Miss Crestwood asked me to drop some files off at the villa. I went in through the side entrance, and when I stepped into the living room," she swallowed, "Mr. Cade was there. On your couch. In sleepwear. Her voice wavered. "You've always treated me well, sir. I thought you deserved to know." A chill crept through the room. Ethan's face went cold. So Tristan had already moved in. He was still in the hospital, and Tristan couldn't even pretend to wait. No wonder Vivian had insisted, "Let me pick you up when you're discharged." Control. Stage management. She was setting the scene before he got home. Ethan nodded, voice even. "Thank you." He picked up his phone and opened the home security app. Nothing but black. The cameras had been covered. He frowned. Slowly turned to Sophie, who was still lingering by the door. "Tonight," he said calmly, "I'll have someone keep them both out of the house. I need you to arrange for discreet camera installation. Don't leave any trace." Sophie nodded immediately. Yes, sir. That night. 10 p.m. Vivian swept into the hospital room, perfectly made up, heels clicking softly against the tile floor. She stepped to Ethan's bedside, her gaze tender, apologetic. "You called me over," she said, voice sweet and low. "Missed me, didn't you?" "I'm sorry. Today was hectic." Ethan frowned. Then, surprisingly, he gave her an out. "I know," he said slowly. "You've been planning my birthday party. That's why you're late, right?" Vivian blinked, caught off guard, then smiled. She reached for his hand, laced their fingers together. "You really do know me best." Ethan held her gaze. No smile. "Yes. I know you," he said softly. "I know everything you've been doing." Something in her shifted. She stiffened slightly, her eyes flickering. "Ethan." She barely got his name out. A nurse entered, pushing a tray cart with 4 bags and fresh meds. "Excuse me," she said cheerfully, moving between them. Vivian stepped aside, hands clasped tightly in front of her. Ethan didn't say another word. But behind his silence, something had changed. The game was no longer about heartbreak. It was about timing. The next morning, Ethan opened the surveillance feed. The villa's dining room flickered onto the screen. Tristan sat in his chair, Ethan's usual seat at the head of the table. Vivian was curled beside him, pouting dramatically. "I'm pregnant, I can't eat anything," she whined, her voice soft and teasing. Tristan smiled with saint-like patience. He scooped up a spoonful of soup and raised it to her lips. "Be good. Eat something, for the baby's sake." Vivian giggled and let him feed her, one bite at a time. Her lips curved in perfect contentment, her hand resting delicately on her flat stomach. After lunch, Tristan went upstairs. Vivian turned to the house staff and waved them closer. Her tone sharpened. "About Tristan moving in, when Mr. Calder comes home, not a word. To anyone. Understood?" "Yes, ma'am," the staff murmured in unison. Back in the hospital, Ethan watched in silence. No reaction. Just a slow blink as he turned away from the screen. "Sophie," he said calmly. "I'll be writing the guest list today. Start preparing the wedding invitations. 3 days left." Vivian arrived in the morning with a thermal flask of chicken soup. She smiled sweetly. "I asked the housekeeper to make it fresh, just how you like it." Ethan didn't refuse. He took the spoon from her hands and drank it slowly, one sip at a time. The warmth didn't reach past his throat. When she left, he waited half an hour, then opened the surveillance feed again. There they were. Vivian and Tristan on the couch. Tristan's hand rested gently on her stomach, his voice soft. "Your eyes are so beautiful," he murmured. "I hope our baby has them." Vivian laughed, cheeks glowing. "Your jawline's perfect. Let's hope the baby gets that from you." Later that night, Ethan's lawyer Blake arrived with a document folder in hand. "It's done," he said. "Your divorce from Ms. Crestwood is now legally finalized." Ethan took the papers, flipped through them once, then turned to Sophie. "Make a copy," he said. "Put it in the second wedding gift box. 7 years. One long performance." It was time to lower the curtain. 2 days left. Vivian arrived with a bouquet of sunflowers and a small, silver-wrapped box. "I brought you something," she said, perching beside him on the edge of the bed. Inside the box was a silver crucifix pendant, dainty and polished. "I asked the church to bless it," she smiled. "It's for protection. You're being discharged tomorrow, and I want you to be safe." She fastened it gently around his neck, her face glowing. Ethan looked at her. His expression was unreadable. Because he already knew the truth. Last night, Tristan had gone to the hospital for a minor outpatient procedure. Vivian had driven him. On her way back, she'd stopped by the church, not for Ethan, but for Tristan. The pendant had just been a convenient second purchase. He was, once again, the afterthought. And still, Ethan said nothing. Not yet. Vivian had barely left the hospital when Sophie walked in with a file folder in hand. "Sir, the invitations are ready," she said softly. "Once you're on the plane, we'll send out the digital versions on schedule." She hesitated. Then added, almost reluctantly. "Ms. Crestwood, she just bought the villa behind yours." Ethan's brows knit faintly. "That place? I thought a family had been living there for years." "They were," Sophie said carefully. "But she offered them an enormous payout and threw in a contract for the husband's construction company. They packed up last night." She lowered her voice. "I also heard, the property deed only lists Mr. Cade's name. It was a gift. A reward, for the pregnancy." Silence. Ethan didn't speak. But his jaw clenched ever so slightly, and his dark eyes cooled. Vivian wasn't even bothering with pretense anymore. She was building him a house. A nest. Not for a child. For Tristan. That evening, Ethan watched the live feed from the home surveillance. Tristan looked irritated, annoyed as he directed house staff to move his things, suitcases, stereo equipment, a row of shoe boxes, into the new villa. Ethan watched until the screen blurred. Then shut it off. Final day. Vivian arrived bright and early to pick him up. She was glowing, her energy radiant. In the car, she leaned over with practiced affection and clicked his seatbelt into place. "Ethan," she said sweetly, "it's your birthday. Everything's ready for tonight. Dinner's at 7. Don't forget to invite your brother." "Okay," Ethan said. The car rolled into the gated estate. For days had passed since he last set foot inside. Nothing had changed. Not the hallway rugs. Not the smell. Not the angle of the books on the side table. It was as if Tristan had never existed. He went upstairs. In the bedroom, the first thing he noticed was a men's electric shaver sitting atop the vanity. It wasn't his. It wasn't supposed to be there. But it sat openly, casually, left behind like a signature on the wall of a conquered city. A careless little act of possession. Letting him know who now lived here. Ethan didn't touch it. A few minutes later, a housekeeper called him down for lunch. At the table, Vivian was radiant. Her voice soft, eyes brimming with devotion. She placed food on his plate, spooned him soup, fussed over how little he was eating. She looked just like she had that day with Tristan, when he had been feeding her. Ethan chewed slowly. Swallowed. Then looked her straight in the eyes. "If," he said softly, "just if, you had a dream one night that I was gone. That I left you. Would you be sad?" Vivian's smile faltered. She froze mid-bite, then reached across the table and clasped his hand tight. "Sad?" she echoed. "I'd lose my mind." "Don't even joke like that, Ethan. I can't live without you." Ethan nodded slightly, lips pursed. Before he could speak again, her phone buzzed on the table. It was face up. And he saw it. Tristan. Incoming message. Vivian didn't notice him glance at the screen. But he saw it all. Her phone buzzed again. "My stitches are bleeding. It hurts. You don't think something's wrong, do you?" Vivian's expression shifted instantly. A flicker of panic darted through her eyes. She stood quickly, smoothing her dress. "There's a small issue with the birthday venue layout, I have to go check on it. I'll come pick you up once it's fixed." She turned to leave, reaching for her purse. But Ethan reached out and caught her wrist. "Vivian," he said, his voice calm, almost kind. He gave her a small smile. One filled with things unspoken. Goodbye. She stopped. Turned. He looked the same handsome face, same calm tone. But his eyes were different. They used to hold her like she was the center of gravity. Now, they looked through her, cold, distant, empty. Ethan, you. She stepped forward, reaching out. But her phone buzzed again. She hesitated. Gave him a strained smile. Then left without another word. Ethan returned to the bedroom. He opened the drawer, retrieved his documents and passport. Took everything of importance. Then he glanced at the silver crucifix around his neck. Without pause, he yanked it off and tossed it into the trash. Moments later, he called Sophie. She's gone to be with Tristan, he said. I'm heading to the airport now. Once I board, proceed with the plan as discussed. He paused. And make sure Tristan receives a wedding invitation. Yes, sir, Sophie replied quietly. 1 hour later, Ethan stood at the terminal, staring out at the tarmac. He passed through security with quiet efficiency. Sent a message to his parents. Boarding in 30. See you soon. Then he opened his last chat thread with Vivian. Ethan, I've prepared 2 surprises for you tonight. I hope you like them. Her reply came instantly. Vivian, baby, I can't wait. I'm still at the venue fixing decorations. I need everything perfect for your birthday, just wait for me to come get you, okay? Ethan typed slowly. Ethan, no need. I'll head to Meridian Grand Hotel on my own. He would not be going. He closed the thread. Meridian Grand Hotel. 19th floor, birthday banquet. 20th floor, the wedding stage. Vivian would be there, waiting for him to arrive. She had no idea the spotlight would turn. No idea who else had been invited. And once he was on that plane, everything would fall into place. The moment the boarding call came through, Ethan pulled out his phone. Removed the SIM card. Tossed it in the trash. No more calls. No more pretending. Goodbye, Vivian. From this moment on. You'll never find me again. 6:30 p.m. The golden hour bathed Meridian Grand Hotel in soft amber light. The valet line stretched down the block. Crystal chandeliers inside the lobby shimmered as a stream of well-dressed guests entered through the revolving doors. Vivian stood outside, perfectly made up, every hair in place. She smiled. Greeted people by name. But her eyes scanned the street behind every arriving car. Still no Ethan. She checked her phone. Nothing. At 6:43, her thumb hovered over his contact photo. She hit call. 1 ring. 2. Then a cold, mechanical voice. The number you have dialed is currently switched off. Vivian's smile faltered. Her brow furrowed. A sharp pulse of unease stabbed at her chest. He turned off his phone. No. No way. He was probably just late. Or forgot to charge it. Or. She clenched her phone tighter, trying to shove down the rising sense of dread. But her mind was already spiraling. Her thoughts flashed back to lunch. Tristan had texted mid-meal, "My stitches are bleeding again. It hurts." Without a second thought, she'd left Ethan in the hospital and rushed Tristan to urgent care. The doctor had said it wasn't serious. Emotional stress. Poor rest. Post-op sensitivity. Still, she'd stayed. All afternoon. She had planned to return to Ethan before the banquet. Had even told Tristan she needed to leave. But he'd clutched her wrist, placed it over her belly. His voice low, pleading. Just a little longer. I want to be with the baby. Vivian had tried to pull away. "It's Ethan's birthday," she said. But Tristan curled up on the bed, his strong frame shrinking small, moaning about pain, the baby, how scared he was. And, like always, she caved. She promised him she'd surprise him later tonight. That they'd celebrate too. Then she'd rushed to the hotel, breathless. And now? No Ethan. No word. Only silence, and that mechanical voice. "Why is your phone off?" she whispered to herself, pressing redial. Nothing. Again. And again. Each call landed in voicemail. Sophie stood quietly near the floral archway, holding a small, white gift box wrapped in navy satin ribbon. She stepped forward, her heels quiet against the marble floor. "Ms. Crestwood." Vivian turned, distracted and impatient. Sophie held out the box. "Mr. Calder prepared 2 surprises for you tonight," she said gently. "He asked me to give you this. Would you like to open it now?" Vivian's brows lifted slightly. She snatched the box without thinking, fingers already tugging at the ribbon. But then she froze. Her eyes locked on the words handwritten across the lid. "Second wedding gift." She blinked. Her grip tightened. "Why does it say, second wedding?" she asked, her voice suddenly sharp. "Did you bring the wrong box?" Sophie looked at her evenly. "No, Ms. Crestwood. That's the box Mr. Calder gave me." Vivian's pulse skipped. She shoved the box back into Sophie's hands like it burned her. Took a step back. Her fingers trembled as her gaze darted around the lobby, searching, maybe for Ethan, maybe for something that would make sense of this sudden, freezing dread crawling up her spine. A second wedding? To whom? And where the hell was Ethan? It felt venomous. The box. Like some rabid thing that might bite. Vivian's fingers recoiled. She turned her back to Sophie and dialed the house line. The call clicked through. "Get Ethan," she snapped. "Tell him the birthday banquet has started. Tell him to come now." On the other end, the housekeeper hesitated. Then quietly said, "Ma'am. Mr. Calder left the estate 6 hours ago. He was wheeling a suitcase." The blood drained from Vivian's face. "What? Left? With luggage?" Her voice rose, sharp and laced with panic. "Why didn't you inform me?" The housekeeper sighed. "He asked us not to, ma'am. Said it was a goodbye. He thanked us for these past 5 years. Gave each of us $5,000. A beat. He was very calm." Vivian's grip on the phone tightened. Something beneath her ribcage twisted. It wasn't just anger. It wasn't confusion. It was fear. Raw, unfiltered fear. She could feel something slipping, like a thread pulled from a seam, unraveling fast. "I want you to go upstairs. Master bedroom. Top left drawer. Check if his passport and ID are still there." There was rustling. Then footsteps. The line stayed open as the butler climbed. A minute later, he returned, voice low. "All your documents are here. His are gone. And ma'am, his things, he had them all removed. He said he'd be donating everything to charity." Silence. Vivian couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Her ears rang. Her fingers trembled. He took his documents. Cleared his things. Paid the staff. Gave away all his belongings. No, no. This couldn't be what it looked like. Not tonight. Not on his birthday. Her heart thundered against her chest. This wasn't a tantrum. This wasn't a Cold War. This was an exit. She fumbled to hang up the call and opened her messaging app. Typed fast, desperate. "Honey, I thought we were celebrating together. Please don't be upset. Where are you? I'll come to you. Send. An alert popped up. Message failed. You've been blocked. She stared. No. That had to be wrong. She tried again. Ethan? Again, blocked. Vivian's breath hitched. She had been cut off. He was gone. Not missing. Not sulking. Gone. And he had made damn sure she couldn't follow. Sophie stepped forward quietly. The white box, still untouched, rested in her hands. Ms. Crestwood, she said gently. He said the answer you're looking for is inside. She held out the gift. This time, Vivian took it. But her fingers trembled. She didn't open it right away. Because deep down, she already knew. She opened the box with trembling hands. The scent of cedar and cotton rose faintly. Inside. Scraps. Shredded fabric. Soft, familiar blues and whites. His shirts. Her shirts. The couple set. Torn to pieces. On top, a collar fragment, hand-stitched, clean needlework. A single word embroidered in navy thread. Husband. Vivian's knees nearly buckled. She clutched the fabric like a drowning woman reaching for driftwood. No, she whispered. No, this isn't real. This isn't from Ethan. This is someone's sick joke. He wouldn't, he couldn't. But she knew he would. He told her, once. A year ago. Their 4th wedding anniversary. That night, he handed her the custom-made women's shirt. He had on the matching men's version. They fit like two halves of a vow. I don't care what the papers say, he had smiled, eyes shining. To me, you're my wife. I'm your husband. And I love every single day with you. Then. He had pulled her close. But if the day ever comes when you betray me, or this marriage breaks my heart, I'll tear all of it apart. Myself. And now. He had. Vivian stood frozen. Like the soul had drained out of her body. He knew. He knew everything. And yet he had smiled. And kissed her. And let her believe. From the side, Sophie's calm voice broke the silence. There's more underneath. Vivian moved automatically. She lifted the shredded fabric, her hands shaking. Second layer. A red booklet, its pages violently mutilated. Their marriage certificate, ripped and slashed, as if with surgical precision. Vivian's breath caught in her throat. He destroyed it. All that remained was the third layer. She saw the clean, flat edge of a legal document. Vivian reached for it slowly, like it might burn her fingers. She unfolded it. Her name. His. The date. Ethan's handwriting. The signature. The divorce agreement. Vivian stared. Her voice cracked. He asked you to take this from the safe? Sophie nodded. He requested the signed copy yesterday. The attorneys have filed it. It's already been processed. Just one sentence. Calm. Final. But to Vivian, it felt like the floor had dropped out from beneath her. He was gone. Not just absent. Not hiding. Gone, and legally unbound. She had no claim on him. No chance to fix anything. No more lies to cling to. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She simply stood there. Crushed. A woman who had lost not just a man, but the only version of herself that had ever been loved without condition. Vivian's heels echoed sharply against the marble floor. Each step toward the ballroom was heavier than the last. Behind her Sophie followed in silence. The corridor was suffocatingly long. Lining both sides. Giant photo boards. All of them from her secret shoot with Tristan. Their wedding portraits. Lovingly posed. Smiling. Hands intertwined. One photo even showed Tristan kneeling, pressing his lips against her belly. Beneath it, a gilded plaque. To the new family. Vivian, Tristan, and baby. Vivian's stomach turned. She never approved any of this. Who authorized these photos? Who sent out the invitations? Who made it public? She spun around, voice sharp, demanding. This has to be some mistake. Is this Ethan's doing? Sophie didn't flinch. She merely pointed toward the doors of the grand ballroom. The real surprise is inside. Vivian hesitated. Then she pushed open the doors. Light. Cameras. Faces turning. Phones up. Gasps. The ballroom was packed. Dozens of guests, Ethan's friends, her clients, industry elites, all dressed for a birthday party. But the decor said otherwise. White flowers. Gold chairs. A wedding aisle. On stage. A screen lit up. Black. Then blue. Then a video began to play. No sound at first. Just images. Vivian. Tristan. Secret dinners. A close-up of their joined hands under a restaurant table. Another clip, Tristan slipping into the back door of her villa. Then. Audio. Don't kiss my neck, I have to go back before Ethan gets suspicious. Vivian's blood froze. Her voice. Her words. Clear as day. Her face, projected 10 feet tall, glowing under the chandeliers. The audience was silent. A few gasps. A few phones discreetly raised to record. Then, another clip. Hospital hallway. Tristan leaning over her. Say it. You love me more than him. Vivian's whisper, I love you. I've always loved you. He's just, safe. The clip ended. Then the final screen. To Vivian Crestwood. Here is the truth you tried to hide. Tonight, the world sees it all. Ethan Calder. Dead silence. Vivian's breath came in shallow gasps. Her hands shook. She turned slowly, every face was watching her. Not in celebration. In shock. In judgment. In pity. She was the show. A woman once adored, now unmasked. At the back of the room, someone clapped, once. Vivian's eyes snapped toward the sound. It was Tristan. In a tuxedo. Smiling nervously. Holding flowers. He didn't know. He clearly hadn't seen the video. Vivian stared at him, the man who ruined her marriage, who dragged her into this public hell. And now? Even he looked unsure. Vivian didn't remember how she made it inside the ballroom. Her legs moved, but her mind was blank. The next thing she knew, she was sitting, no, collapsing, into a chair near the aisle, breath shallow, heart hammering. She looked up. The massive screen flashed image after image. The signed divorce papers. Her and Tristan's wedding portraits. Photos of her dining with Tristan's parents, smiling like the perfect daughter-in-law. The audience murmured in disbelief. Vivian's fingers curled into fists. Each photo was like a nail in her coffin. How long had Ethan known? Was it last week? Last month? Or had he known all along, watching silently, waiting to strike? She remembered that moment from earlier today. The way he looked at her, not with anger, not with love, but with a quiet, resolute emptiness. His voice echoed in her head. Vivian, goodbye. She thought it meant, see you later. Now she knew. It was a farewell. A final chapter. She turned to Sophie, her voice barely a whisper. Where did he go? Sophie kept her gaze steady, shaking her head gently. I'm sorry. Mr. Calder instructed me not to tell you. Before Vivian could press further, the ballroom doors burst open. Tristan. Dressed in a crisp tuxedo, cheeks flushed with excitement, eyes scanning the room like a groom searching for his bride. Then he saw the screen, their wedding photos. A delighted gasp escaped his lips. Is this the surprise? Our wedding? Vivian, you did all this for me? Vivian froze. She looked at him, really looked at him. Excited. Clueless. Utterly self-absorbed. The same man who faked pain to keep her at the hospital. The same man who used her guilt, her soft heart. She didn't feel love. She felt nausea. Who told you to come? Her voice was cold. Go home. We'll talk later. But Tristan stepped closer, brows furrowed in boyish confusion. What do you mean go home? You invited me. He glanced around proudly, unaware of the stares, the tension, the silence thick as fog. This is our big day. You even filed for divorce, why didn't you tell me? Were you planning to surprise me with the ceremony? He beamed. Did you invite my parents? You must have. Wait, is there more? What else are you planning for me? Vivian stared at him, stunned. He thought this was a celebration. He truly believed this was love. A wedding. Her gift to him. Vivian's chest tightened. The cameras. The whispers. Her shame, her stupidity, her loss. And here he was, giddy, oblivious, waiting for confetti and kisses. Her lips trembled. But she said nothing. There was nothing left to say. Vivian had just opened her mouth to ask Tristan to leave when a crowd suddenly swarmed into the ballroom. Dozens of guests filed in, their heels clacking, murmurs buzzing like flies as they glanced at the screen, and froze. On the giant screen were 4 damning images, cycling in quiet, ruthless rhythm. A legally binding divorce agreement. Vivian and Tristan's wedding portraits. Vivian dining sweetly with Tristan's parents. Tristan in a tux, smiling beside a wedding arch. The silence broke. What the hell is going on? Someone gasped. Is this a wedding or a scandal? Wait, wasn't today Ethan's birthday party? Before the crowd could settle, the screen flickered. A grainy, handheld video started rolling, shot from across a lake. A black Aston Martin parked by the water. A man and a woman standing close. Too close. The man's side profile turned just enough. Someone in the crowd shouted. Holy crap, is that Tristan? And, that looks like Vivian. Gasps. Chatter. Disbelief. People looked at the screen, then at the couple standing awkwardly beneath it. One of Ethan's college buddies barked out. Wait, are we witnessing a cheating confession in real time? Damn, no wonder Ethan didn't show up to his own party. Bro got cheated on and just nuked the whole marriage. A few of Vivian's friends tried to whisper defenses, but their voices died under the weight of the evidence. And the humiliation. Vivian's face had turned a sickly pale. She pulled out her phone, dialing furiously. Shut down the damn screen, she hissed into the receiver. Now. Too late. The screen blinked again. New slides appeared. Screenshots. Chat logs. And then, an audio file. Sophie had embedded the clip with a simple title. Voice message from Tristan, 30 seconds. The ballroom went dead quiet. Then Tristan's voice echoed from the speakers. Been back for 6 months. Snapped my fingers, she came running. She's planning blue fireworks for me tonight. Not a fan of blue. Figured you could use M for your anniversary. A collective groan filled the room. Tristan's jaw dropped. His knees weakened. How the hell did Ethan get that file? Vivian turned her head slowly. Her vision blurred. On the screen. A shirtless Tristan, lounging in bed, next to her, photo sent from her phone. Tristan posing in their couple shirts, mirror selfie style. Candlelit dinner, the exact night of her 5th wedding anniversary. Her live GPS pin from the lakeside. 3 wedding photos, followed by a message. What's it feel like, Ethan, to know your wife would rather marry me? Someone muttered. But that voice message wasn't sent by Vivian. More heads turned. And then the same loudmouth from earlier snapped his fingers. Oh my God. What if Tristan used her phone to send all that crap to Ethan? Gasps again. And this time, outrage. Wait, the guy used her phone to send taunts to her husband? Bro's not just a side piece, he's a clown. He's never been slapped hard enough, clearly. Even Vivian's old classmates, once her allies, joined Ethan's friends in righteous fury. You cheated, fine. But this? Giving your lover access to your husband's phone line? And letting him act like a little punk? Vivian stood there, cornered, stripped, exposed. And Tristan. He looked like a dying fish in a wedding tux. Vivian finally saw it all. The screen in front of her lit up with a grotesque truth. Red-rimmed eyes narrowed, she turned to Tristan, step by step, her heels echoing like gunshots across the marble floor. You said you were playing games on my phone, she said, voice trembling with cold fury. But you were messaging Ethan behind my back, provoking him? Her words struck like ice. I warned you, she hissed. You can have anything from me. Money. Time. Even my body. But you can never let Ethan know you exist. Her voice broke. But only for a moment. I've told you, over and over again, that I only have one husband. And it's Ethan. She stared at the phone screen, the message history glowing like a digital crime scene. Every smug line. Every taunt. Every time Tristan pushed Ethan closer to the edge. And suddenly, Vivian felt it, not anger, but something far worse. Guilt. What had Ethan been going through all this time? Every message from Tristan, every jab, every carefully planted seed of humiliation. How must he have felt? Alone. Cornered. Destroyed. If Ethan had done this to her, she'd have gone insane by now. Vivian's expression turned stone cold, her lips bloodless. Her fingers tightened around her purse. A beat later, she hurled it, full force, into Tristan's chest. Then again. And again. Each strike sharper, harder than the last. You're still making excuses, she screamed. You think Ethan would ever stoop to calling you first? You think he'd waste a moment of his life on you? He doesn't even see you. The final hit landed on Tristan's healing side. He doubled over, face ashen. Stop, my stitches, Jesus, it hurts. He clutched his ribs, gasping. Viv, don't get so worked up. You'll scare the baby. Vivian froze. Her jaw clenched. A long, ragged breath left her lungs. Then slowly, she backed away. If you weren't carrying my child, she whispered, I'd kill you. Right here. Right now. Be grateful, Tristan Cade, she seethed. Be grateful you're the father. Tristan sank into the couch, eyes darting to the dark corners of the hotel suite. The damage was done. Moments later, the hotel manager came rushing up to the 20th floor, out of breath and clearly panicked. He fumbled with a remote, trying to shut off the screen overhead. No response. With no other option, he ordered the entire power grid shut down. And just like that, the screen went black. The audience dispersed. The disaster was over. But the silence that followed was deafening. In the center of the grand suite, under chandeliers that no longer sparkled, Vivian stood utterly alone. Vivian picked up her phone with trembling fingers. She dialed Logan. The call barely rang once before he answered, his voice light, mocking. Well, well. Isn't today the grand wedding of Miss Vivian Crestwood herself? Congratulations. Real shame I couldn't make it to the event of the century. Vivian's throat felt dry as dust. Her voice came out hoarse, frayed at the edges. It's not what it looks like, she said quietly. Ethan misunderstood. I'll explain everything to him. There was a pause. Then Logan let out a dark laugh. Misunderstood? You call getting pregnant by your ex a misunderstanding? Vivian, don't insult my intelligence, he snapped. You know better than anyone how much Ethan sacrificed for you. He didn't wait for her response. You remember when he met you, don't you? Junior year at Stonebridge. He had his whole life mapped out, was supposed to move to Norway after graduation. His parents had it all set. But then you showed up. Vivian closed her eyes, as if she could shut out the memories. But they kept coming. Ethan, sitting with her on that old campus bench. Her, with tears in her eyes, whispering, stay. Just a little longer. Stay with me. And he had. He stayed for 5 years. Logan's voice sliced through the haze. Ethan could have left. Should have. He was born into wealth, into a world where people moved the sky for him. But he chose you. Stonebridge became his world, because you were here. And every year, he only saw his parents for a week, because the other 51 were yours. Vivian pressed her hand to her chest. It felt like her ribs were collapsing in. And you know what's funny? Logan continued. The world thought he was just your boy toy. A pretty face riding your coattails. But the truth? He handled half your network. Those investors who owe you favors? That diplomat who opens doors? That quiet assistant who keeps your secrets? Ethan did that. People listened to him not because he demanded it, because he earned it. For 5 years, your staff, your family, your partners, they respected him. They liked him. Because he loved you. Vivian's face turned ashen. Her voice was barely a breath. He knows I'm pregnant. She'd hidden it so carefully. It had to be Tristan. He told him. Another silence. Then Logan let out a sharp, sarcastic laugh. What, you thought you could hide that from him forever? Have the kid in secret, raise it like a project behind his back? What was your endgame, Viv? Send him a photo on the kid's 18th birthday? Vivian didn't respond. Logan exhaled, his tone suddenly hard with finality. Honestly, I'm glad he found out now. You're not the kind of woman who deserves to walk into old age holding his hand. He deserves so much better. The line went dead. Vivian lowered the phone slowly, her hand shaking. She was alone now. And she knew it. Vivian's face darkened, lips pressed into a hard line. Logan had struck a nerve. Her eyes, usually calm pools of charm, now shimmered with a stormy haze. Where is Ethan? She demanded. I need to find him. I'll explain everything. Logan's voice dropped, smooth and sharp as glass. Can you get to California, and terminate the pregnancy? If you do that, he said casually, I'll tell you where he is. Vivian faltered. Silence stretched on the line. Then, finally, she exhaled. You don't understand, she said wearily. Ethan has a medical issue. He can't get me pregnant. She paused, her tone shifting, urgent, almost pleading. I swear, once the baby is born, I'll send Tristan away. For good. He'll leave Stonebridge and never come back. On the other end, Logan closed his eyes and shook his head, slow, bitter. He felt something crack deep inside. You still don't get it, he thought. Ethan had taken the blame. For 5 years. He had carried the shame of infertility like a quiet cross, never once complaining. Never pointing fingers. Because he loved her. And now? Now she used that secret like a shield. Even after Ethan walked out, she still wanted a child, but chose to do it in the most brutal way possible. She chose her first love's child. And now she wanted forgiveness? Logan's voice turned icy. I have nothing more to say to you. One day, you'll answer for this. Vivian frowned, her gut twisting. Something in Logan's tone felt final. Wait, she tried. But the call was already dead. She stared at the screen in disbelief. And then she got to work. Unwilling to give up, Vivian started calling Ethan's closest friends, one by one. Most had been at the birthday party that never happened. And now, they all knew. The affair. The pregnancy. Tristan. Some declined her calls altogether. Others picked up only to rip into her, furious, disgusted, heartbroken on Ethan's behalf. You don't deserve him. You played him like a fool. 5 years of love, and this is how you repay it? Vivian called dozens. Not a single one would say where Ethan had gone. She was out of options. So she paid for information. Hired a professional team to track him down, discreetly, urgently. The next day, just past noon, her office door creaked open. Evan stepped inside, shoulders stiff, voice low. Miss Crestwood, he said carefully. We found him. She stood up fast, hope flickering. Evan hesitated. He's in Norway. The word hit her like a slap. Norway. Vivian froze. Her breath caught. She closed her eyes. And for the first time, felt something break inside. 5 years ago, when she and Ethan married, his father, Martin Calder, had presented her with a contract. A clause. If Ethan ever left her because of betrayal. If he ever returned to Norway alone and heartbroken. She would be forbidden to set foot in Norway for the rest of her life. If she tried, everything she owned, every asset in her name, would automatically revert to Ethan. And now? Now he was there. Alone. She couldn't follow. She couldn't fix it. She had broken the one man who had never stopped choosing her. Vivian was quiet for a long moment. Then, her voice barely above a whisper, she said. Book me the earliest flight to Norway. Evan froze, stunned. Miss Crestwood, once you set foot in Norway, that contract activates. Whether or not Mr. Calder takes you back, everything you own becomes his. You'll lose it all. Are you sure? Vivian gave a soft She didn't care. She just wanted to see Ethan. Wanted to explain. The moment the ticket was secured, she rushed home. She hadn't dared return last night. Now, walking through the front door, she could already sense it, what the housekeeper had warned her about. Ethan was gone. She climbed the stairs to the master bedroom. Her heels echoed through the quiet hall as she opened the bedside drawer. Empty. All of Ethan's documents, passport, IDs, bank cards, vanished without a trace. Her chest tightened. The silence of the room roared in her ears. She staggered back a step, blinking against the weight pressing down on her ribs. It was all real. He had left. For good. She steadied herself. Called for the staff to pack a suitcase. Then, from her phone, she printed every photo she had of her and Ethan, fragments of happier years, and carefully slid them into an envelope. 1 hour later, just as she was about to leave for the airport. The front door burst open. A man stormed in and pulled her into his arms, gripping her tightly, his voice taut with panic. "Vivian, are you out of your mind? If your emotions get out of control on the flight, what happens if something happens to our baby?" Tristan. 10 minutes earlier, he'd heard from a maid at the neighboring villa. Vivian was leaving for Norway. And if she left, every asset in her name would revert to Ethan. He couldn't sit still any longer. Vivian's face hardened, torn between fury and fatigue. "I'll be back in a week," she said, her tone clipped. Tristan shook his head, jaw clenched. "You're already not in great health. What if you fly over, argue with Ethan, and something happens? You could lose the baby." Then he paused. Stared her down. "If you're really set on going," he said, voice low and cruel, "terminate the pregnancy first. Fly to California. End it." He was gambling, on a child that didn't exist. Vivian hesitated. She looked away, then slowly nodded, offering a compromise. "I'll wait 2 months. Once the pregnancy is stable, I'll go to Norway." Then she turned back to him, eyes like frozen steel. "But you better pray I carry this baby to term. Because if anything happens to it," her voice dropped to a growl, "I will make sure your entire family pays the price." Something in her stare made Tristan take a step back. His throat went dry. She didn't know. Not yet. She didn't know the pregnancy was a lie. That the test results were forged. That he and a corrupt doctor had built this illusion together, brick by careful brick. No. She wouldn't find out. He'd planned too carefully. And if she started having doubts? Well then, he'd just have to work a little harder to keep her distracted. Oslo, Norway, International Arrivals Terminal. Ethan wheeled his suitcase through the glass doors, shoulders stiff under the weight of everything he wasn't saying. From a distance, he saw them. His parents, Ingrid and Martin, standing side by side at the reception barrier. Ingrid's eyes filled with tears the moment she laid eyes on him. Her brilliant, beautiful son, once so full of life and purpose, looked like a man who'd walked barefoot through a war. The light in his eyes was gone. And just like that, her heart broke all over again. "Is everything taken care of?" she asked gently, her voice thin with restraint. She already knew the answer. She and Martin had gotten word last night. News traveled fast, even across oceans. Vivian Crestwood's betrayal had made headlines back in Stonebridge. The photos. The rumors. The wedding shoot. The quiet dinner with Tristan's parents. The entire spectacle, Vivian parading around like Ethan had never existed, was now public scandal. Ethan looked up at his parents. There was no use pretending. No lie would hold. His voice cracked. "I'm sorry." He couldn't meet their eyes. This wasn't just his heartbreak. It was a shameful mark on the Calder name. Martin Calder was one of the most respected businessmen in Norway. Ingrid, a fierce powerhouse in European finance. And now their son, publicly humiliated. Ethan braced himself for judgment. But it never came. Ingrid stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. She ran her fingers through his disheveled hair, the way she used to when he was little and scared after a nightmare. "No, my darling," she whispered. "You loved with your whole heart. That's never something to apologize for." She pulled back just enough to look into his eyes. "The only disgrace is betraying someone you promised to protect." Martin, usually the stoic one, gave a rare approving nod. "She's not worth your regret, Ethan. You're better off. Divorce was the best thing that could have happened. You're home now," he added firmly. "Your mother and I will take care of everything. You don't have to take over the company unless you want to. God knows we've made enough for you to live peacefully. You want to rest?" Rest. Ingrid took his hand in both of hers. She was watching him closely, searching for cracks that might shatter if pressed too hard. Heartbreak isn't the end of your story, she said softly. As our son, you've earned the right to make mistakes. You get to start over. Ingrid and Martin, two titans in their fields, had built empires. But to their only son, they offered something far rarer than power. Unconditional sanctuary. Ethan's throat tightened. His eyes burned. After so long gripping pain in silence, he finally let the warmth in. This was what love was supposed to feel like. Safe. Steady. Unshakable. I want to go back to school, he said quietly. Learn properly. When I'm ready, I'll take over. 7 years. He'd poured all of himself into a love that didn't deserve it. Now, he was going to build something else. A life with purpose. Work that mattered. Time with the only two people who had never let him fall. Vivian had promised Tristan she wouldn't leave for Norway until her pregnancy was stable, 2 months, at least. But lately, something had shifted. She'd begun pulling away. Subtly. Deliberately. Tristan would invite her to dinner, she declined, citing back-to-back meetings. When he whined that his surgical scar was acting up, she didn't rush over. She called a doctor. Had them do a home visit. When he claimed he missed her so much he couldn't eat, she didn't soften. Then skip a few meals, she said coolly. You'll survive. What truly broke him was the document she later placed in front of him. A legally binding agreement. She would give him a generous sum of money, after the child was born. On one condition, Tristan would never see the child. Never contact them. Never set foot in Stonebridge again. He stared at the papers, chest heaving. This is our baby, he said, voice cracking. You think you can just erase me from its life with a signature? Vivian's face was pale, emotionless. She cradled her stomach with one hand, her other trembling with suppressed annoyance. You should be grateful, she said coldly. That you're even the father. He signed. What choice did he have? Vivian, meanwhile, launched her campaign of repentance. She began posting handwritten apology letters to Instagram, each one heartfelt, raw, and filled with longing. Some were reflections. Some, tear-streaked prayers for Ethan's forgiveness. Others, vivid recollections of their happier days. To prove her sincerity, she even posted videos of herself writing the letters, her hands shaking, eyes red, her voice soft as she read them aloud. At first, the internet was merciless. She was the woman who secretly took wedding photos with her lover behind her husband's back. The one who let the whole world believe her marriage was fine while she was building another life on the side. Her comments section exploded. Thousands of furious voices poured in. Too little, too late. Ethan deserved better from day one. Save the tears, where was this energy when you were with Tristan? Vivian said nothing. She posted one letter. Then another. Then another. Every single day. 1 month passed. Gradually, the tide began to shift. A small group of viewers, moved by her consistency, began to speak up. People make mistakes. At least she's trying. I don't think she ever stopped loving him. If he sees these letters, maybe, just maybe, there's hope. Vivian didn't respond to the praise, either. She just kept writing. And the more she leaned into redemption, the more Tristan unraveled. She visited him only once a week now, brief check-ins at best. Each time, she asked him to speak a few soft words to the child growing inside her. Then left. Every time she left, Tristan could feel it, she didn't see him as a partner. Not even as a person. Just a name on a paternity form. A means to a biological end. The deadline loomed. Vivian was due to fly to Norway in 1 month. And Tristan knew, sooner or later, she'd walk into a hospital. And when she did, she'd find out the truth. That there was no baby. That the ultrasound, the paperwork, the blood tests, all forged. His stomach twisted at the thought. He was running out of time. Out of excuses. Out of leverage. Sweating, trembling, Tristan picked up his phone. And called someone. Someone who owed him a favor. Someone who could help him keep the lie alive. A black sedan rolled through the gates of the Upper Estate District, gliding to a stop outside Tristan's villa. From the passenger side, a young woman stepped out, shoulders squared, chin raised. Before the engine's hum faded, the car peeled away, disappearing down the hill. She stood alone in the amber wash of the streetlights, lit a cigarette with a flick of her lighter, and walked through the front door like she owned the place. Clad in a black leather biker jacket, combat boots, and ripped jeans, she looked like trouble, in all the ways men with weak judgment tend to crave. Her face was delicate, striking, but her energy was brash, loose, untamed. She carried herself like a girl who'd never heard the word consequence. From a distance, she could have passed for one of those spoiled second-generation heiresses who partied in Monaco and crashed Porsches before brunch. Up close, the chaos was sharper. Tristan looked up from the couch, and immediately tensed. "You're insane," he snapped, rising to his feet. "You let the driver pull in? You want to send up a damn flare?" Claire smirked and sauntered closer, exhaling a lazy stream of smoke into his face. "Oh please," she drawled. "You think Vivian doesn't know about us?" Tristan recoiled, coughing, waving the smoke away. Claire flopped onto the couch, legs splayed, one booted foot up on the coffee table. She gave him a slow once-over, eyes gleaming with mischief. "So," she said, voice low and teasing. "You call me here to reminisce? Try and rekindle the spark?" Tristan grimaced. Looking at her now, he could hardly believe he'd ever dated her. What had he been thinking? "No," he said flatly. "Vivian's not pregnant." Claire's smirk vanished. "What?" The cigarette paused at her lips. She blinked, coughed, then burst out laughing, short, harsh. "You lied to her," she wheezed. "Are you completely out of your mind?" He didn't answer. Just looked away and muttered, "I wish I could have gotten her pregnant." Claire raised an eyebrow, leaned forward, and gave him a once-over that made his skin crawl. "Wait. Don't tell me, Tristan. Are you not functional?" "Drop it," he snapped, his expression souring. "That's not why I called." He explained everything. How the pregnancy was fake. How Vivian had plans to leave for Norway. And how, once she set foot in that country, her entire fortune would legally transfer to Ethan. Claire leaned back, eyes narrowed, cigarette now crushed into the glass tabletop without a care. "So let me get this straight," she said slowly. "If she goes to Norway, poof, everything becomes Ethan's. And you? You walk away with nothing." "Exactly. But what's that got to do with me?" Tristan's gaze lingered on her. That same old look, dangerous, desperate, calculating. "Oh, it has everything to do with you. You want a comeback, right?" he said. "A second shot at the life you lost?" Claire folded her arms. "What are you getting at?" Tristan stepped closer, eyes glittering. "You help me stop her. Keep her here. Just long enough. And what's in it for me?" He didn't blink. "Access. Leverage. Power. You want a second life," he whispered. "Help me destroy hers." Claire studied him for a beat, expression unreadable. Once, long ago, they'd been lovers. But now? They were something else entirely. Co-conspirators. Claire came from the Edward family, one of the oldest dynasties in Los Angeles. Their empire dwarfed the Crestwoods by a mile. But Tristan hadn't known the truth back when they were dating. Hadn't known that Claire was a secret. A daughter born out of wedlock. A stain on the family name. And in the Edward household, bastards didn't inherit power. They didn't sit at the boardroom table. They didn't touch the trust funds. Claire got just enough to stay quiet. Enough to dress the part, play the rebel heiress. But when it came to legacy, she was a ghost. In the dim light of Tristan's living room, shadows flickered across his sharp features. He stared at her, voice low, cold. "I want you to go to Norway," he said. "Find Ethan. And take care of him." Claire's cigarette paused mid-air. She blinked. Slowly. "You mean, kill him?" The words tasted bitter in the air. She stared at him, genuinely stunned. But Tristan's face held no hesitation. The smirk, the charm, it was gone. Only a calculated menace remained. "This has nothing to do with me," she said tightly, trying to pull away. But Tristan stepped forward, voice like ice. "Vivian's the most likely heir to the entire Crestwood fortune. If I marry her and secure that position, you think I'd forget who helped me get there?" He leaned in. "I can make you rich, Claire. Free. You stay with the Edward family, you'll never be more than a pet. You'll never build anything of your own. And if you try?" He scoffed. "That matriarch you call a grandmother will tear you down before you ever break ground." Claire didn't move. Didn't blink. Tristan's voice dropped to a whisper. "Help me stop Ethan. Make sure Vivian never sets foot in Norway. And once I'm in control." He let the silence finish the promise. Then he added, almost as an afterthought. "I've got the rest handled. I've already planned how to make her lose the baby. I'll work with a doctor. Convince her to try IVF. And when the time's right, she won't be carrying Ethan's child. She'll be carrying ours." In the silence that followed, Claire stared out the window. The moon hung low, swollen with heat. She raised a hand and clawed lightly at the glass, like she could scratch the stars from the sky. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Book me a flight. I leave tomorrow." She turned to go. Then paused. Grabbing Tristan's jaw, she yanked his face close. Her voice was a growl. "If you try to screw me over," she whispered, "I'll slit your throat myself." And she meant it. The late afternoon sun poured over the fjords of Norway, glinting off the snowcaps and curling gently across the balcony of Ethan's study. He sat back in a woven cane chair, stretched out on the terrace, a small fire pit glowing at his feet. 1 month. 1 full month of silence. Of stillness. No scandals. No cameras. No Vivian. Just lectures in the morning, economics books in the afternoon, and quiet, firelit evenings that smelled of citrus and fresh air. For the first time in years, Ethan felt good. Alive. Present. Clear-eyed. The deep grooves of heartache had started to soften, his skin glowing again, his eyes lighter. He picked up a clementine from the basket on the table and began to peel it. When his phone buzzed. "Logan." Ethan answered on speaker, lazy and warm from the fire. Logan's voice came through, laced with dry amusement. "You seen her latest stunt? She's gone full Nicholas Sparks now." Ethan didn't even look up. "Who?" Logan chuckled. "Vivian. She's been posting handwritten love letters to you. Every damn day." Ethan frowned as if he'd just smelled something sour. Not following anything from Stonebridge, he muttered. "Didn't we say goodbyes already?" "She's got the whole internet swooning, man," Logan continued. "Self-reflection letters. Teary video monologues. Yesterday she lit a candle while reading one about your first Christmas together. It's a full-blown redemption campaign. Ethan exhaled sharply, tossed an orange peel into the fire. She can campaign all she wants. I'm not seeing her. There was a pause on the other end. Then Logan's tone shifted, cooler, more serious. Well, rumor is she's planning to fly out to Norway next month. Ethan's hand froze midair. Logan stirred his coffee slowly. Relax, I know you're not gonna let her get near you, he said. But if she lands here, that prenup kicks in. She steps on Norwegian soil and, poof, everything she owns is legally yours. Ethan said nothing. Logan continued, voice low and steady. If you don't take her back, and I know you won't, she loses everything. And people like that, he added. When they lose everything, they break. You have no idea what she might try. Ethan was quiet for a moment, then nodded. Thanks, he said. I'll be careful. After hanging up, he didn't tell his parents about the call. They'd already done more than enough for him these past few weeks. Martin and Ingrid had begun subtly reintroducing him into the family circle, inviting him to board meetings, prepping him to take over the Calder name. They believed in his future again. And for the first time, so did he. That evening, Ingrid returned home from the office. She knocked gently on his door. Tomorrow night, she said, smiling. Come to dinner with us. We'd like to introduce you to someone. Ethan looked up from his laptop and nodded with quiet obedience. Sure. He'd grown used to these setups. They never said the word matchmaking, but the dinners always involved high-powered friends, influential daughters, and knowing glances from Ingrid across the table. The next evening, Ethan drove them to the restaurant. It was a cliffside place overlooking the sea, a luxury venue carved into the edge of a fjord, snow-tipped mountains across the water like something from a dream. But he didn't notice the black car following 3 vehicles behind. Didn't see it mirror every turn he made. The restaurant itself was perched over glass windows that hovered above a glacier-blue drop. Inside, candlelight shimmered against marble. Ethan had just taken his seat and politely greeted the couple across the table when he excused himself. Restroom, he murmured, pushing his chair back. As he walked down the corridor, a window caught his eye. He paused. Outside, the sky burned orange, the snow-crusted cliffs catching the dying sun. The fjords glistened like molten crystal. He stopped walking. For a long moment, he just stood there, gazing out. Unaware. Behind him, in the parking lot, the black car had stopped. And someone had just stepped out. The sea stretched endlessly before him, a silver expanse breathing under a cold, coastal wind. Ethan stood at the edge of the cliffside terrace, letting the chill settle against his skin. It made him feel clean. Awake. He loved this feeling. The stillness. The power beneath the surface. And then, a shadow moved behind him. Hands, sudden and firm, clamped down on his shoulders. Before he could react, he was shoved forward. His feet scrambled for traction, but the railing was too far. He tried to twist, to grab hold of something. Too late. Another hard shove. His body toppled over the railing and dropped like dead weight into the icy sea below. The ocean swallowed him. Cold, so cold it was like 1,000 knives in his lungs. Ethan tried to scream, but the water rushed in, burning through his throat. The weight of the fall knocked the breath out of him. He sank, panicked, limbs flailing as the dark closed in. His vision blurred. His chest screamed. He was going to drown. Just as the blackness began to curl around the edges of his mind. A hand grabbed him. Slender. Strong. Dragging him back to the surface, up through the waves, toward air. 5 minutes later, he was lying on the shore. salt stung his eyes. His body trembled uncontrollably, coughing up sea water, lungs raw and burning. And he was in someone's arms. A woman. She was soaked head to toe, a pale beige gown clinging to her frame like silk against marble. Water streamed from her hair down her neck, but it only made her more striking. She looked at him, not with panic, but with calm purpose. "Mr. Calder," she said gently, adjusting her hold on him. "You're freezing. Let's get you into something warm." 10 minutes later, Ethan sat inside a private room at the cliffside restaurant, wrapped in a thick robe, warming his hands in front of a silent heater. His thoughts were scattered. Shock, confusion, cold. But one thought cut through the noise. Who the hell pushed me? And then, who the hell saved me? The woman sat across from him now, changed into a sleek black dress that skimmed her curves like shadow. Her hair was still damp, but she looked composed, elegant and untouchable. Ethan stared at her for a long beat. You knew my name," he said, voice hoarse. The woman smiled. Her lips were deep red, her eyes steady. "I know Martin." Ethan blinked, brows drawing together. "You wouldn't happen to be the person my parents were introducing me to tonight?" She tilted her head. And nodded once. Ethan let out a breath, stunned. Most of the people his parents had tried to set him up with were older, stiff, draped in reputation and age. But this woman, she was his age, maybe a year or two older. And she had just pulled him from the sea. Ethan studied her face. There was something about her, confidence that didn't shout. A mystery he couldn't place. He looked down at his hands. Then back up. "Could you not mention what happened to my parents?" he asked quietly. "I don't want to worry them." "Of course," she said, as if it were obvious. He nodded. They stood together, and in silence, walked back toward the dining room. Behind them, the dark waves whispered against the cliffs. Somewhere, a killer was already disappearing into the night. And Ethan? He had no idea how close he'd just come to dying. Or how dangerously lucky he was to have survived. Alice didn't walk in with him. Instead, she waited, 2 minutes exactly, before making her entrance. Calm. Composed. Unassuming. Ethan had already taken his seat. Ingrid turned to him, eyebrows knitting together as she noticed his change of clothes. What happened? Why the wardrobe switch? Ethan lowered his head slightly, keeping his voice even. Slipped in the restroom. Shirt got dirty. A half-truth. Alice, gliding past the table in a fresh black gown, glanced at him briefly. Her lips curled upward, not mocking, but knowing. The rest of the dinner passed with surprising ease. Conversation flowed. Laughter came naturally. And as they spoke, Ethan learned more about the woman who'd quite literally pulled him from the brink. Alice's family, it turned out, was in oil, deep roots in Norway, wealth stretching across continents. Bigger than the Calder holdings. More influential in certain circles. Martin, ever the tactician, had clearly hoped Alice could be more than just a dinner guest. Perhaps even a mentor. Perhaps more. By the time the plates were cleared and Ingrid rose to leave, the message was clear, she approved. "We'll head home," she said. "You two enjoy the rest of your evening." Ethan nodded. "I'll walk around for a bit. Clear my head." They left. He didn't. As the restaurant quieted, Alice watched him from the edge of her wine glass. "You're staying to check the security cameras, aren't you?" she said calmly, eyes flickering to his face. Ethan looked up, surprised. He hadn't expected her to call him out so directly. "Yes," he admitted. "I want to know who tried to kill me." The push had been deliberate. Controlled. Not a clumsy slip. A man's strength. He could still feel the pressure on his shoulder. Alice stood without hesitation. "Come on. I'll take you to the manager." 30 minutes later, they were in the security room, the soft hum of monitors casting a faint glow over Ethan's face. The restaurant staff had been cooperative, concerned, even, but as one of them rewound the footage, he sighed. The assailant covered the lens before making contact, the man said regretfully. "We have no video of the actual fall." Ethan's jaw tightened. The staffer paused, then added, "However, the camera at the front caught him getting out of a car." Ethan straightened. "A car?" The man nodded. "A black one. Driven by a woman." Ethan's brows knit together. "Do you have clear footage of their faces?" Four staffers took turns scanning every angle, enlarging every frame. After half an hour, they gave their verdict. "I'm sorry," one said. They were both wearing hats. Masks. "We couldn't get a clear visual." Ethan said nothing for a long moment. Then he looked up, voice calm but steely. "Send me everything you have. Every second of that woman's footage. Every shot of her car. Her clothes. Her movements. I don't need the puppet," he added quietly. "I want the puppeteer." Alice said nothing. But in the quiet of the security office, she studied Ethan's profile. And realized this wasn't a man broken by betrayal. This was a man sharpening the blade of his comeback. On the drive home, Ethan forwarded the surveillance footage to Logan. Along with a single message. "Find out who this woman is." Seconds later, Logan called. "What happened?" Something in his tone, low, wary, made it clear he already suspected the worst. Ethan recounted the entire night, his voice flat but tight. By the end of it, he pressed 2 fingers to his temple, as if trying to soothe the pounding inside. "If Alice hadn't shown up when she did," he muttered, "I'd be dead." There was a pause. Then Logan's voice, clipped and cold. "I'll handle it. I'll find her." Across town, in the silence of a dimly lit villa, Tristan sat stiff on the couch. He'd called Vivian a dozen times. No answer. Each ring that went to voicemail twisted the tension in his chest until he hurled the phone onto the cushions. It barely bounced before it started ringing again. He snatched it up. The screen lit with Claire's name. He answered, then instantly scowled. "What did you just say?" he barked. Ethan was saved. By who? Claire's voice slithered through the line, calm but poisonous. She explained what had happened at the cliffside restaurant, how another woman had appeared out of nowhere, ruining everything. Tristan's eyes narrowed. His knuckles whitened. Jealousy, thick and bitter, surged through him. Why is Ethan always the one who gets lucky? On the other end of the line, Claire sat in her car, watching the streetlights flicker against the windshield. Her voice dropped to a low, dangerous register. "He slipped through my fingers tonight. He's going to be on high alert now. It'll be harder." Tristan's voice was cold enough to frost glass. "Then don't move unless I say so. Wait. We strike again when the time is right." She was about to whisper something soft, something seductive. Tristan hung up. A week passed. Ethan had officially stepped into the Calder family business. Martin and Ingrid, cautious and protective, eased him into the role, carefully controlling his workload, shielding him from boardroom wolves. But Ethan hadn't worked in a structured environment for months. Even with the slow ramp-up, the pressure was real. He felt it in his shoulders. In the way he rubbed his eyes too often. In the blank stares he gave his laptop after meetings. Thankfully, Alice was there. She made everything easier. "When you're closing a deal," she told him one afternoon, lounging in his office with a glass of lemon water, "think of it as a game. If it works out, great, celebrate. If not, you still made a new contact. Might come in handy." When the anxiety weighed heavier, she'd tease gently. "How's your tolerance? I usually have a drink when I feel like flipping a desk. Self-care, right?" Then, with a wink. "We've got to enjoy the grind. Gotta amuse ourselves, darling." He laughed despite himself. Even the interns outside noticed. Ethan Calder, famously reserved, actually smiled now. That week passed without incident. Smooth. Steady. Almost too steady. Because while Ethan buried himself in the family empire, Claire was unraveling at the seams. She had waited. She had obeyed. But Ethan's rigid routine, home, work, gym, home again, offered no gaps. No vulnerabilities. No windows to strike. And Claire? Claire didn't wait well. That afternoon, just as Ethan stepped out of a strategy meeting, his phone lit up with Logan's name. He answered immediately. "Ethan," Logan's voice was low, tense. "I found her." Ethan closed the office door behind him and dropped into his chair. "Who is she?" "Claire Edward," Logan said grimly. "Tristan's ex." Ethan's eyes darkened as Logan continued. The Edward family, it turned out, was even more powerful than the Crestwoods, at least on paper. But Claire? Claire was illegitimate. The kind of bloodline that got you pushed to the margins of the family's wealth, no matter how rich the last name sounded. She wasn't allowed to touch anything related to the family fortune. No voting rights. No corporate positions. No stake. And once Tristan found out, he dumped her. Logan went on, voice laced with disdain. After that, Tristan ran off to Canada, got himself a new girlfriend. But she wasn't interested in a long-term deal with a guy like him. So he crawled back and latched onto Vivian again. Ethan's eyes narrowed. "You think they're working together?" There was a long pause. Then Logan exhaled. "That's exactly what I think. Claire didn't just shove you off that cliff for kicks. She wanted you dead. My guess? Killing you cuts off Vivian's reason to stay in Norway. Clears the way for Tristan." He paused again, this time with real bitterness in his voice. No idea what Tristan's been feeding her to get her on board. Must be some potent shit. Ethan leaned back in his chair and stared at the ceiling for a long second. Then, "Let them get what they want." Logan's voice sharpened. "What are you talking about?" Ethan looked straight ahead, eyes glinting. "I'm going to fake my death." "You're serious?" Ethan nodded. "If I'm dead, Vivian will fly here to mourn me. That gives me the legal leverage to revoke her inheritance, cut her off completely. She wants to play the grieving soulmate? Let her." He stood up, pacing slowly. "Once I disappear, Tristan won't let Claire anywhere near me again. Which is perfect, she's been clinging to me like a parasite. I'm done being hunted." He stopped at the window, looking out over the city skyline. "And most importantly, when Vivian finally shows up, Tristan will realize he went through all that scheming, for nothing." He turned. "This is the cleanest way to burn the whole mess down." Logan whistled under his breath. "Damn. That's actually genius." But if he was going to pull it off, Ethan needed help. And there was only one person he trusted with something this insane. He drove across the city and found Alice already waiting, curled in her reading chair, black cashmere sweater draped off one shoulder, tea in hand. She raised an eyebrow as he stepped in. "So let me get this straight," she said slowly. "You want me to help you, find a way to look dead without actually dying?" Ethan nodded. He didn't sugarcoat it. He laid out everything, every twisted thread of the last 2 months. Tristan. Claire. Vivian. The inheritance. The betrayal. He recounted it like someone reading a medical case study, detached, analytical, as if the wounds belonged to someone else. When he finished, Alice set her cup down. "I want to sever all ties," he said simply. "But I also want to make sure they pay." Her eyes didn't leave his face. She saw the calm, the precision, the exhaustion under his carefully maintained exterior. And beneath that, a hint of something sadder. Lonelier. Her heart twisted. She stood up, walked over, and placed a hand lightly on his arm. "Then let's plan your funeral," she said softly. "And make it unforgettable." Alice paused for a few seconds, her fingers lightly tapping against the edge of her glass as she thought. "Technically speaking," she said, "faking a drowning is the easiest route. But considering what just happened to you near the ocean, going back to the water so soon would be suspicious." Ethan nodded slowly. She continued. "Falling off a cliff is too dangerous, too many variables. My recommendation? A fatal car accident." Ethan blinked. A car crash? He sat in silence, letting it sink in. The more he thought about it, the more it made sense. He'd been sticking to a tight routine lately: home, work, back again. No nightlife. No sudden detours. Anyone trying to get to him would have very limited chances. Tampering with his car? That was the most logical window of opportunity. But how do we bait her into messing with my car? He asked. Alice's lips curled into a knowing smile. "Leave that to me." The next afternoon, Claire was on edge. It had been over a week since her last attempt, and she hadn't gotten within 10 feet of Ethan. No meetings. No casual encounters. He barely even stepped outside of monitored spaces. Frustrated, she slammed her steering wheel and pulled into a parking space near her temporary rental. Across the street, she spotted a quiet little restaurant. She walked in, ordered something just to fill time. As the server left her table, the bell above the door jingled behind her. 2 tall men in dark hoodies and baseball caps stepped inside. They looked like brothers, same sharp bone structure, same heavy build, same rough edge. Tattoos spilled down their arms and crept up their necks. One carried a worn duffel bag slung casually over his shoulder. They settled into the table right next to hers. The older one, around 40, unzipped the duffel and tossed it onto the seat beside him. Claire caught a flash of metal tools, wrenches, pliers, something that looked distinctly illegal. He cracked open a beer, chugged half the bottle, and leaned in toward his companion. "This job'll keep us fed for half a year," he muttered. The younger one, late 20s, leaner but just as rough, grinned and lifted his own beer in a casual toast. She said, "Make it look like an accident. And with today's rain, once that kid gets behind the wheel, he won't know what hit him." He took a long drink, then rolled up his sleeves, revealing even more ink. "Man, stepmoms, huh? Always playing sweet with the kid for a couple years, until the poor bastard gets his license. Then boom, she's plotting to take him out." Claire's eyes flicked up. She kept her face still, but inside, her mind was racing. Who were they talking about? A stepmother plotting to kill her stepson, a rigged car, today's rain. Her pulse sped up. She didn't know who hired them. But it didn't matter. This could be the exact opening she needed. All she had to do was find a way to slip into their plans. But first, she needed the perfect excuse to strike up a conversation. And that might take some finesse. Pete narrowed his eyes, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. "Where would guys like us make money," he muttered, "if there weren't these twisted people out there?" Robert chuckled coldly, tipping back the rest of his beer. "The more messed up people in the world, the better. Couple more gigs like this, and we're out." That was the final push Claire needed. She stood up, walked straight over to their table, and sat down across from them with a polite, polished smile. "Gentlemen," she said smoothly. "This meal's on me. I just need a quick favor. Pete's body tensed. His tone was clipped. Do we know you? No, Claire admitted without hesitation. She leaned in slightly, voice dropping to a confidential tone. But I know you're kind. And I'm here to make you a better offer. Her smile widened, lips glossed and charming. Whatever he paid you last time, I'll double it. The two men exchanged a quick glance. Pete hesitated. Then, with a tight nod and a greedy grin, he muttered. Deal. Money's money, no matter whose pocket it comes from. Claire exhaled, relieved. She raised her bottle and clinked it against theirs. They talked for another 30 minutes. She played the game well, keeping her tone light, eyes gleaming, calculated and disarming. Before leaving, she slid a photo across the table. Ethan Calder. Clean-cut, serious, unaware. Pete pocketed the photo, and Claire strutted out of the restaurant like she'd just closed a $1 million deal. As soon as she left, Pete stepped outside, climbed into the back seat of a parked black SUV, and made a call. Alice picked up on the first ring. She took the bait, Pete reported. Alice sat behind her mahogany desk, lazily twirling a silver pen between her fingers. What's her plan? Pete repeated everything Claire had told them, her voice, her tone, her exact instructions. She said to wait for the next rainy day, Pete explained, and when Calder's car is parked in the underground garage at his office, that's when we do it. Disable the brakes. Or anything that'll make sure he doesn't walk away. There was a pause. Then he added. She emphasized this part a few times, make it count. One hit. No loose ends. Said if we get the job done right, there's an extra $500,000 in it. There was silence on the other end. Then came the click of metal. Alice had set her pen down. She's generous, Alice said, her voice suddenly cold, razor sharp. Pete blinked. He'd worked with this woman for years, but rarely had he heard her sound angry. Do I go all in? He asked, cautious now. No, Alice replied after a pause. Just make it look good. Slight tampering. Leave the rest to me. She already had a plan in motion, a body double who'd take Ethan's place behind the wheel. When the car crashes, the news would report Ethan Calder dead. End of story. Got it, Pete said. 5 days later, a heavy storm swept across Oslo. At 8:32 a.m., Ethan parked his black Jaguar in the underground garage of the Calder Group headquarters. Rain hammered against the windshield as he killed the engine. He didn't rush. Just grabbed his bag, stepped out, and walked slowly toward the elevator. Not far away, inside an old utility van, Claire sat quietly, watching through a slit in the rain-streaked window. Her phone lit up. She called Pete. He's here, she said. Wait until the rush is over. Then move. Copy. At precisely 12:07 p.m., lunch hour, Pete and Robert stepped out of the van. Dressed head to toe in black hoodies, black pants, black gloves, black masks. They blended in with the rainy shadows, their movements swift and practiced. They headed toward Ethan's car. Everything was going exactly as planned. Or so they thought. Pete and Robert popped open the hood of Ethan's car, tools in hand. A few minutes of swift, expert tampering, then they closed it and vanished into the shadows like nothing had happened. Once out of the parking garage, Pete sent Claire a short message. All set. Claire replied instantly. Final payments in. If it's a clean kill, you'll see another $500,000 hit your account. Appreciate it. As the workday wound down, cars trickled out of the underground garage one by one. Claire sat in her car across the street, eyes fixed on the entrance, nerves wired tight. It wasn't until 7:30 p.m. that she finally spotted Ethan strolling casually toward his car. He got in, started the engine, and drove off without a second thought. Claire followed. Inside the Jaguar, the man in the driver's seat narrowed his eyes at the rearview mirror. He kept his speed steady. Drove with precision. Then, as the road dipped into a nearly empty stretch of downhill, he made his move. A sharp flick of the steering wheel. The car spun, once, twice, 3 full rotations. Then it slammed into a tree trunk with a sickening crunch. Fire exploded from the hood almost instantly. Flames roared as the car became a burning metal coffin. Claire sat a few hundred feet away, gripping her phone. She snapped a quick photo of the fireball, then calmly drove off with a cold, satisfied smile curling her lips. 30 minutes later, Martin and Ingrid arrived at the hospital in complete hysteria. Their son, dead. There was no body to view. The damage had been too severe. But the authorities confirmed it was Ethan's car. His ID. His watch. His wallet. At 10:14 p.m., the Calder family released a public obituary. Obituary. With immense sorrow, we announce the passing of our beloved son, Ethan Calder, who died in a tragic car accident on December 20, 2024, at 8:07 p.m., at the age of 27. Ethan was a kind-hearted, joyful soul who brought light into the lives of everyone he met. His warmth and laughter will echo in our hearts forever. May he rest peacefully in heaven. If there is a next life, we hope we will still be family. The obituary went viral within minutes. Stonebridge Estate. Tristan stood in the middle of the living room, reading the screenshot Claire had just sent him. He stared for a moment, disbelieving. Then he laughed, loud, manic, pacing in circles like a man finally unshackled. Finally, he whispered, "That bastard's out of the way. Ethan, Ethan. Don't blame me. Blame yourself, for getting in the way of my future." Vivian's office. She was in the middle of a late-night executive meeting when her phone vibrated. A message. Just one line. A forwarded obituary. At first, Vivian froze. Then she opened it. Her fingers trembled. Her chest tightened. Her entire body shook as if the floor beneath her had vanished. "No," she gasped. "No, no, no, this isn't happening." Her voice cracked in front of the entire boardroom. Everyone went silent. Evan, sitting closest to her, looked at her with alarm. Then he glanced at her phone, and his face went pale. Ethan Calder. Dead. Everyone, leave. Now, Evan said urgently, waving the other execs out the door. "Ms. Crestwood," he said softly, "I'm so sorry for your loss." Vivian's eyes were bloodshot, her breath ragged. She pushed herself to stand, but as she turned toward the door, her knees buckled. She collapsed. Everything went dark. Evan caught Vivian just in time. "Ms. Crestwood. Somebody help, get her to the hospital, now." 2 hours later, Vivian's eyes fluttered open under the sterile lights of a private recovery room. Her first instinct was to reach for her phone. Her fingers trembled as she pulled up the obituary again. She stared at it, lips quivering. Then the dam broke. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she sobbed uncontrollably. "Ethan. I'm so sorry. How could you leave me like this? How am I supposed to live without you?" Her voice cracked with every word, her body curling inward in grief. A few feet away, her assistant stood frozen, eyes wide. Vivian looked up, eyes red and glassy. "Book me the next flight to Norway," she said hoarsely. "I have to see him. One last time." Before the assistant could respond, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Tristan stood just outside the door, stunned. He hadn't seen her like this before. Not even when he left her all those years ago. Back then, she had cried. But not like this. Not like the world had ended. What did Ethan have that I didn't? Tristan walked in slowly, jaw clenched. He grabbed Vivian's wrist. "You're going to Norway?" he snapped, voice cracking. "He's dead, Vivian. What's the point? You go now, and you come back with nothing, not a cent to your name." Vivian whipped around and yanked her arm free. Her face twisted with fury. She took a step toward him. Then another. Her eyes darkened, sharp as glass. Tristan instinctively backed up, one step, two, until his back hit the wall. Vivian raised a fist and pounded it against his chest with all the strength her grief could muster. "You were the one who stopped me," she shouted. "You stopped me from going to him. If I'd gone, we'd have made things right. He never would have gotten in that car." Her voice cracked into a sob. "You killed him. Indirectly, but still, you killed him. I swear to you, Tristan, once this baby is born, I will make your life a living hell." There was no room for doubt in her voice. No heartbreak. Only rage. Tristan stood frozen, his chest rising and falling with shallow, panicked breaths. Vivian turned without another word and walked out of the room with deadly calm. He collapsed to the floor, legs giving out, his face drained of color. His whisper came hoarse and hollow. "Gone. Everything's gone." He had calculated everything. The prenup. The estate clause. The timing. But he hadn't anticipated this, Vivian willing to lose everything, just to see Ethan one last time. If she stepped foot in Norway, the clause would activate. She'd forfeit everything. And with nothing left to inherit, she'd be worthless to him. He couldn't let that happen. He needed a backup plan. Fast. Vivian would be in Norway soon, and when she was, the deal would be done. Claire. She might be a bastard daughter, but her family was still more powerful than a broke and disowned Vivian. Tristan didn't hesitate. He grabbed his phone and dialed. "Hey," he said smoothly when Claire answered. "When are you coming back?" "I made dinner. Just for you." The next afternoon, Ethan's funeral. The skies hung low and heavy, drizzling rain over the cemetery like a quiet morning. Martin and Ingrid walked slowly through the iron gates, Ethan's portrait clutched between them, his smile frozen in time. A steady stream of mourners trailed behind, umbrellas blooming like wilted flowers. Vivian arrived late. She wore no makeup. Her face was pale and drawn, aged 10 years in a single night. Her breath fogged in the cold air as she stumbled across the wet gravel, barely able to keep herself upright. She reached the grave and fell to her knees. Right there, in front of his headstone. "I'm sorry," she choked out, her voice cracking. "I'm sorry I'm late, baby." Then, without warning, she slapped herself, once, twice, 3 times, until her cheeks flared red. "I shouldn't have let Tristan stop me. I should have come to Norway the moment you asked. God, were you in pain? That crash, did it hurt?" She sobbed violently, hands trembling as she touched the edge of the stone. "If I had been there, I could have saved you. Please, wake up," she whispered, clinging to the grave like a drowning woman. "Please just wake up and look at me." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the small crowd. Most of them had heard the rumors. They'd whispered about Vivian choosing another man, abandoning her husband for some sleazy affair. But this? This didn't look like the grief of a woman who'd stopped loving. It looked like devastation. Martin and Ingrid stood silently a few feet away, their eyes cold and unreadable. They exchanged a glance, but said nothing. Neither of them moved to comfort her. Vivian, lost in her own world of regret, didn't notice the man standing in the shadows among the mourners. He wore a black hooded jacket and a matching mask. His eyes, dark, sharp, burning, never left her. Beside him, Alice stood holding an umbrella above them both, her face calm but watchful. After a moment, she tilted her head and whispered, "You pity her?" Ethan's brows drew together. He met Alice's gaze, voice low and even. I don't pity her. I pity myself. His words were quiet, but the weight behind them was crushing. That first night Tristan sent me those recordings. I didn't sleep. Not a second, he muttered. Vivian was curled up next to him, dead asleep. Our anniversary. He let out a dry laugh. Those blue fireworks weren't for me. She gave me the leftovers from another man's show. I was in a hospital bed after a crash meant to kill me, and she moved him into our home. Into our bed. His voice dropped to a whisper. Tell me, Alice, shouldn't I mourn myself first? Alice looked away, her mouth tightening. She said nothing. But she could see it, the storm beneath his calm. After a moment, she shifted the umbrella and said softly, Do you want to leave? Walk a little? Ethan's lips curved slowly, his eyes still locked on the grave where Vivian knelt. He exhaled, a ghost of something between pain and release. Yeah, he said. Let's walk. Yesterday, he'd signed his new identity papers. Ethan Calder was dead. He had a new name now. Jake. And this time, he wasn't chasing love. He was starting over. A week later, a public announcement from Martin and Ingrid sent ripples through the high society elite. Their nephew, Jake, would be taking over the company. The news exploded across every business column and private club. The Calder family had passed the reins, and not to their deceased son, but to someone almost no one had heard of before. Back at the Stonebridge estate, Vivian had been spiraling since returning from Norway. She no longer dressed for the day. She no longer spoke to anyone for long. Most days, she sat curled up on the living room couch, a bottle of wine in one hand and a framed photo of Ethan in the other. My Ethan, she whispered, tears spilling freely. You're lying to me, right? You're not gone. You can't be gone. Please, come back. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have never betrayed you. I should have never. Her words drowned in sobs. While Vivian crumbled, Blake, cold, efficient, had taken the 5-year-old agreement she'd signed and began processing the transfer of her assets. Ethan was officially, legally dead. And in the eyes of the law, his fortune no longer belonged to her. The entire estate, houses, vehicles, stocks, collections, was now under the control of Martin and Ingrid. And Ingrid showed no mercy. She called Blake personally, her voice calm but razor-sharp. List every car, every watch, every piece of art in her name. Everything with value, sell it. Not a single thing goes to Vivian, not even a teacup. She needs to learn, loyalty thrives. Infidelity sinks. Yes, ma'am, Blake replied without hesitation. A week later, he stood at the door of Vivian's once magnificent villa. She opened the door in slippers, pale and unkempt. Blake barely recognized her. For a moment, his face twitched with surprise, but just as quickly, it smoothed into professional indifference. Ms. Crestwood, he began, I'm here regarding the villa. The property has been sold. The new owner signed the contract this morning. I'm afraid I'll need to. Before he could finish, Vivian looked up and let out a hoarse laugh. You want me gone, don't you? She took a shaky step forward. Ethan's gone. There's nothing of him left in this house. What's the point of staying? Without waiting for a reply, she walked past him. Evan, who'd been waiting outside the gate, rushed to follow her. She'd been drinking herself to sleep every night. On the worst nights, she barely slept at all. And on the darkest one, she tried to slit her wrists. She never said a word about it, but Evan knew. That was why he kept watch. So when Vivian collapsed in the middle of the garden path, Evan caught her just before she hit the ground and rushed her to the hospital. This time, he made a call. A call he'd been dreading for years. 2 hours later, a fleet of black cars pulled up outside the hospital. At the front of the group was Megan Crestwood, Vivian's formidable grandmother. The matriarch. She swept into the hospital like a storm, flanked by aides and lawyers. When she entered the private room and saw Vivian on the bed, ghostly, lifeless, her jaw clenched. A nurse was adjusting and sliding a needle into the vein on Vivian's trembling hand. Vivian stirred, eyes glazed. Without a word, she yanked the needle out. "Ma'am, please," the nurse said gently, reaching for another set of tubing. But Vivian pulled it out again, this time tearing the skin open. A thin line of blood welled up, trailing down her wrist. The nurse froze, exchanging a helpless glance with Megan. Vivian didn't flinch. Didn't speak. Didn't seem to care at all. Megan had had enough. With a crack of her cane, she brought it down hard against Vivian's shoulder. "Vivian," she shouted. "On your knees." Vivian looked up as if she'd just seen her last lifeline, but her words were hollow, devoid of will. "Grandma, let me go to him, please." Her voice trembled. "I just want to be buried next to Ethan. Can you talk to his parents for me? Please." Megan's expression turned to stone. The warmth that once lived in her eyes, gone. Her face was carved in ice. Without a word, she yanked Vivian up by the arm and dragged her to the bathroom. In one swift motion, she turned on the tap and threw a splash of freezing water across her granddaughter's face. "Look at yourself." She slammed Vivian in front of the mirror. "Look at what you've become. Out of all my granddaughters, you were the one I had the highest hopes for, yet you're the one who's fallen the furthest." Vivian blinked. Then slowly, her eyes met the reflection in front of her. A pale woman stared back, sunken cheeks, cracked lips, lifeless eyes. A shell of who she used to be. She looked like death had already taken her. Ever since Ethan's funeral, she hadn't really lived. And now, confronted by her own decaying reflection, she couldn't deny it. She remembered 5 years ago, Ethan had held her hand and whispered, "Grow old with me, love. No matter what happens, let's never let go." When had she let go? When had she started wanting more than their quiet, steady life? Was it when her girlfriends flaunted their new lovers like designer handbags? Was it when she convinced herself she was too clever to get caught? Was it when she believed she could juggle 2 lives, 2 men, and never pay the price? Vivian raised her hand and slapped herself across the face. One, then another. Tears spilled freely. "I destroyed us," she thought. "I burned everything good we had." If she hadn't driven Ethan away, if he hadn't returned to Norway, would he still be alive? Would they still be happy? Behind her, Megan exhaled long and deep. Vivian had once been the pride of the Crestwood family, the golden girl, destined for greatness. Now, she was barely hanging on to her own will to live. With a clenched jaw, Megan barked an order at her assistant. "Watch her. Make sure she washes her face, changes her clothes, and comes back looking like a Crestwood." 30 minutes later, Vivian returned. Hair brushed. Dress clean. Lip color soft and subtle. A ghost, reborn as a woman. She sat across from her grandmother. "Grandma," her voice cracked. Megan didn't respond. Instead, she laid a thick stack of documents on the table between them. At the top of the pile was a photo. Vivian and Tristan. Wedding day. Smiles wide. A veil pinned in her hair. His arm around her waist. Megan slid the photo toward her. She coughed lightly, her voice raspy but commanding. "You had the affair, Vivian. Not him. You broke your vows. I will not disgrace our name further by groveling to Ethan's parents on your behalf. Everything in your name, properties, accounts, trusts, they've been signed over to them. Think of it as penance for what you did." Vivian flinched but didn't argue. Megan wasn't finished. She pulled out a handful of newspapers and tabloids from her bag and tossed them directly into Vivian's lap. "Read these." Vivian glanced down. Every headline, every single one, was about her. Photos of her crying at the funeral. Footage of her being evicted from the estate. Leaked wedding shots with Tristan. Speculative opinion columns. Words like homewrecker, fallen heiress, and mourning for show screamed off the pages. Vivian's fingers tightened. Her brows furrowed. But she said nothing. She couldn't. Because for once in her life, she had nothing left to defend. Online, people had watched it all unfold, from their picture-perfect wedding to the bitter end. And now, word of Ethan's car crash in Norway had gone viral. At first, it was just a whisper on niche forums. Then it hit the mainstream. And with that, public sentiment shifted like a storm. The outrage wasn't about grief, it was about betrayal. They turned on Vivian like wolves. Master manipulator. Cheated on a man who adored her. Played the mourning widow for sympathy. The backlash spread like wildfire, and it didn't stop at words. Crestwood Group's stock price took a nosedive. Investors panicked. Board members demanded damage control. Megan watched the whole thing unfold from behind her oak desk, fingers laced tightly together. Her voice was low and steady when she finally addressed Vivian. "There will be a public statement. Effective immediately, you are barred from any involvement in Crestwood Group affairs for the next 5 years." "This isn't just about business," Megan added sharply. "It's about character. About loyalty. You betrayed your marriage vows, Vivian, and a broken home will always bring ruin to everything else." Vivian lowered her eyes. The punishment wasn't just symbolic. It was exile. She knew exactly what the next 5 years would look like. Her cousins, sharp, ambitious, relentless, would seize the opportunity to rise. By the time her sentence ended, Crestwood would have moved on without her. She might never reclaim her seat at the table. But as she sat there in silence, only one name echoed in her mind. Ethan. She'd already lost him. What use was a throne when the king she loved was gone? "Understood, Grandma." Megan exhaled, disappointed. She stood slowly, bracing herself on her cane, and walked away without another word. That evening, news of Vivian's removal spread through the city's elite circles. One of the first to hear was Tristan. He sat alone in the apartment, stunned. This should have been a win. Vivian was out of the company. He had a clear path now, if only Claire would return his calls. He'd tried already. Last week, he told her he'd cook for her, make it up to her, anything to start over. Claire had said she'd fly home that same day. But hours later, she called back. Her tone was cold. "My father wants me to return to the estate," she'd said vaguely. After that, she vanished. No answer. No texts. Voicemail. Disconnected line. Tristan tried again now, dialing her number. Same result. "The number you are trying to reach is unavailable." Anxious, he called one of her closest friends. After a long silence, the friend finally spoke. "You really didn't know?" "Know what?" "Claire's dead, Tristan. Car accident." His whole body froze. "What?" His voice cracked. She died?" What Tristan didn't know, what no one knew, was that Claire had died the same day as Ethan's funeral. That very morning, Ethan had quietly returned home. And the first person he contacted wasn't Vivian. It was Claire's father. Tomas. Ethan sent over surveillance footage, each clip carefully time-stamped. It showed Claire sneaking into his home. Tampering with the brakes on his car. Poisoning food. Lurking with a needle full of God knows what. He included every attempt she made to kill him, on camera. Tomas didn't speak for a full minute. Then he exhaled and said quietly, "I'm sorry for what my daughter did. What do you want from me?" Ethan's response was soft, measured. "I don't want anything. No payout. No press. I just want one thing, justice. And your silence." No one could know he was still alive. Not yet. Tomas agreed. That afternoon, Claire was called back to her family's country estate. She never left it again. When Tomas saw his daughter, he didn't hesitate. He ordered the house guards to restrain her, then took out the family whip. 100 lashes. One by one. With each strike, Claire screamed and cursed, but not once did she apologize. He demanded she turn herself in the next morning. Claire refused. In her mind, she hadn't done anything wrong. Her sins weren't her own, they were inherited. "I never had a chance," she spat. "My only mistake was being born to a mistress." That night, while the estate was asleep and the rain slammed the windows like fists, Claire climbed the garden wall and vanished. Tomas sent men after her. They found her car 30 miles out, crashed into a ravine, twisted like paper. Claire was pronounced dead on the scene. Back in the Crestwood penthouse, Tristan sat frozen on the couch, face ashen, eyes wild. Claire was dead. His last real chance, gone. He paced. Thought. Calculated. If he wanted to survive the fallout, there was only one path left, Vivian. The scandal around them was already public. Everyone knew. Everyone whispered. And despite her disgrace, she was still a Crestwood. And Crestwood meant power. Even a disgraced heiress was still worth more than he was alone. All he had to do was stay close, loyal, obedient, patient, for 5 years. Just 5 years. She'd rise again. And so would he. That night, Tristan bribed Vivian's attending physician. The instructions were clear. Add an extra dose. A pill designed to trigger internal bleeding, just enough to create a scare. Next morning, Vivian took her medication as prescribed. Within minutes, her face drained of color. A sudden, hot wetness spread between her legs. She gasped, hands shaking, and slammed the emergency button beside her bed. "Help! Doctor, help, my baby! My baby!" She was rushed to surgery. When she awoke, the sun was high overhead. The room was sterile, silent, too silent. A nurse leaned over her, gently pressing a damp cloth to her forehead. Vivian stared at the ceiling, her voice small and cracked. Where's my baby?" The nurse didn't answer. The doctor stepped in, somber. "I'm sorry, Miss Crestwood. We couldn't save the pregnancy." Her world went white. "No," she whispered. Then louder, shriller. "No." Tears streamed down her face. "Ethan left me. Now the baby, too. No one wants me anymore." Across the room, Tristan stood stiffly, attempting sympathy. "You'll have another," he said softly. Vivian turned to him, eyes blazing. She hurled a pillow across the room, hitting him square in the chest. "Get out. I don't want to see your face. Ever." 3 days later, Vivian was discharged from the hospital. She didn't want a ceremony. But Tristan insisted. He took charge of the arrangements, where the ashes would be buried, what kind of flowers should be laid. He even picked the inscription for the tiny plaque. Vivian stood alone in the drizzling cemetery, hands trembling as she laid a single white rose atop the fresh earth. "My sweet baby. I'm so sorry," she murmured. "I failed you. I couldn't protect you." Tristan stepped closer, sliding an arm around her shoulder. "We'll have another," he whispered, voice low and soft. Vivian turned to him, her eyes dry now, but sharp. "Don't touch me," she said coldly. "You're disgusting." The warmth drained from his face. Tristan's hand froze mid-air, then slowly dropped to his side. He clenched his jaw, the weight of her rejection heavy in the rain. Not far from the burial site, a black SUV idled quietly under a canopy of trees. Inside, Logan sat behind the wheel, phone pressed to his ear as he watched Vivian and Tristan by the grave. "Ethan," he said calmly, "everything's ready. The reports are printed. Someone's about to deliver them to Vivian. Guess we'll see if the truth breaks her." From the corner of his eye, Logan saw movement. A staff member approached Tristan, speaking low. "Mr. Cade, we need you to fill out some final paperwork." Tristan nodded and followed the man, disappearing behind a row of hedges. At the same time, another funeral staffer, a woman this time, approached Vivian with a small folder of documents. Vivian took them, frowning. She hadn't asked for anything else. She flipped open the top page. Patient name, Vivian Crestwood. Sex, female. Diagnosis, primary female infertility. Her pupils dilated. Her fingers trembled. The report rustled in her hand like dry leaves. Her skin turned chalk white. Shaking, she pulled out the second page, a lab copy of her recent pregnancy test. Patient name, Vivian Crestwood. Urine HCG test result, negative. A lie. It had all been a lie. Then came the third page. A wire transfer receipt, Tristan Cade's name as sender. The recipient, the same OBGYN office she'd visited for the so-called prenatal checkups. Her eyes darkened, mouth curling into a bitter line. She stared down at the man who dared call himself her lover, the man who'd pretended to mourn with her, to bury a child that never existed. Her voice came out cold. Cutting. "You mean I was never pregnant?" Tristan had just returned, stepping back into view, only to be frozen by the fury in her voice. He paled. "Vivian, wait, someone's framing me. You were pregnant." "I swear it," he pleaded, inching toward her, voice cracking. "Someone's trying to take me down, this is all fake. All of it." Vivian stepped back as he reached for her, face unreadable now, cold as marble. Then she yanked her arm away. Took out her phone. Vivian's hands trembled as she hit the call button on her phone. Dr. Scott. He was the same physician who'd run her and Ethan's physicals when they'd been planning a future together. The phone rang once, twice, then clicked. Dr. Scott speaking. "It's Vivian Crestwood." A beat of silence. Then Dr. Scott exhaled sharply, as if he'd been expecting this. "Ms. Crestwood." Yes. I remember. About your recent question," he paused again. "Your fiancé, Mr. Calder, asked me to keep something from you." Vivian's breath caught. Scott continued, carefully choosing his words. "Your diagnosis, primary infertility, came back during that round of tests. Ethan saw the report before you did. He asked me to shift the results. He said that if people found out you couldn't have children, it might damage your reputation. That it would affect your standing in the company." Another pause. "He insisted I mark the infertility on his records instead of yours." Vivian went still. "Why?" Her voice was a whisper, nearly inaudible. Scott's voice softened. "Because he loved you, Ms. Crestwood. Deeply. He just wanted to protect you." The line went quiet. Scott's final sentence echoed in her ears, each word a needle sinking into her chest. "He just wanted to protect you." Her knees buckled. Her shoulders shook. A strangled laugh burst from her throat, one that spiraled into sobs. He loved her that much? He'd let the world think he was broken, so that she could still be whole? She clenched the medical reports against her chest, fingers wrinkling the paper. "I'm a monster," she whispered to no one. "I don't deserve to live." Tears poured down her face. Her body convulsed as she cried out, finally, truly grieving the man she had lost by her own hand. Behind her, Tristan had begun inching away. Like a rat slinking out of a burning building. But Vivian's instincts snapped back to life. She spun, eyes blazing. "You're not going anywhere." She barked an order to the security team behind her. 3 suited men leapt forward, forcing Tristan to the ground. "No. No, wait, Vivian, let's talk." Vivian didn't even flinch. She stepped forward, lifted one high heel, and crushed it down onto his shoulder. Then his chest. Then his neck. Each stomp timed with her words. "You think lying to me was fun?" Another stomp. "You think if you hadn't seduced me, if you hadn't stopped me from going to Ethan, he'd still be alive?" Another stomp. Blood began to trickle from the corner of Tristan's lip. Vivian's voice was no longer her own, it was gravel, thunder, death. "Tell me, Tristan. Should I bury you next to him? Let you apologize in hell?" Then, she spotted a shovel nearby. A rusted steel spade one of the workers had left in the grass. She picked it up. And slammed it across Tristan's face. He cried out as the metal cracked his brow open. Blood splashed across the grass. Gasping, he spat, "You think you're better than me? If you weren't barren, I wouldn't have had to lie. Ethan, he was never a saint. He left like a coward. And Claire? She didn't kill him fast enough." Vivian froze. What did you say?" Tristan's eyes widened. He realized his mistake, but it was too late. "You had Claire target him," she said, stepping closer, shovel clenched tight in both hands. Her voice was quiet. "Deadly. You're the reason Ethan's dead." Tristan stammered, backpedaling on the ground. "No, I didn't, Vivian, please." Crack. The shovel came down again. And this time, she didn't hold back. The iron shovel finally slipped from Vivian's blood-stained fingers. Police sirens wailed in the distance. She didn't resist. Didn't run. She just stood there, shoes soaked in blood, hands trembling, staring down at the wreckage of what Tristan had become. When the paramedics arrived, Tristan was barely conscious. He was wheeled into the ambulance with a fractured skull, severe neurological damage, and a face that would never heal right again. 3 days later. At a private event hosted by the Hughes family, a man named Jake arrived wearing a black mask and gold-rimmed glasses, his hair styled differently than before. But those who knew him well, really knew him, might have noticed the eyes. Detached. Cold. Quiet. He said little and left quickly. Back in his office later that afternoon, Ethan, back in his real skin, sat alone until his phone rang. It was Logan. There was an edge of grim satisfaction in his voice. "Guess what? Karma's got teeth. Tristan's out. Brain damage, facial disfigurement. He's stuck in a wheelchair now." Ethan's hand paused mid-scroll on his mouse. His voice was calm. "Vivian. Did she get charged?" A pause. Then Logan sighed. "No." Megan stepped in. She couldn't let the Crestwood name go down like that. Cut a private deal with Tristan's parents. $3 million in hush money, no police report. Ethan didn't say anything. Logan hesitated, then added quietly. They shipped Vivian off to the UK the day after. 5-year exile. Strict orders, she's not allowed to set foot back here in that time. Another beat. She's not well. I heard she's barely eating. Won't talk to anyone. Just locks herself in a room all day, and draws you. Ethan's eyes dropped to the corner of his desk. So it's finally over. Logan didn't respond at first. He knew. He'd seen Ethan fight like hell these past few months, to sever something that had clung to his soul for 7 years. The hurt. The history. The hope. You did what you had to do, Logan finally said. You got your life back. When the call ended, the office fell into silence. Until a knock. Alice stepped in, holding a small paper bag. I queued an hour for this, she said cheerfully, placing it on his desk. It's from that new donut place everyone's obsessed with. Ethan looked up. The sugary smell hit him, sharp and familiar. Vivian used to do this too. Back when she'd still smiled like she meant it, before things got tangled, twisted, unsalvageable. He stared at Alice. She was warm. Steady. The kind of woman who wouldn't play with his heart like a chessboard. Still, he spoke with a furrow in his brow. Alice, he said quietly, I just ended a 7-year relationship. I'm not ready to start anything new. Not yet. Her smile faded, but she didn't flinch. Ethan's voice lowered, heavy with fatigue and truth. If I tried to be with you right now, it wouldn't be fair. Not to you. Not to me. Alice's lips curved gently upward. She met Ethan's gaze and said with quiet certainty. I'm not in a rush. I've got all the time in the world. It wasn't every day she fell for someone like this. And for the right man, she was willing to wait. No matter how long it took. Ethan stared at her, his dark eyes softening. After a long pause, he finally picked up the donut she brought. Took a small bite. And smiled. 2 years later, a church in Norway. The late spring sun poured through the stained glass windows of the chapel, casting golden patterns across white lace and black wool. Ethan stood at the altar, eyes locked on the woman walking toward him in a flowing ivory gown. His heart felt full, calm and certain. Alice took the mic with trembling hands and a gleam in her eyes. Her voice rang clear, the kind only love could steady. You might not believe this, she said, laughing softly. But 3 years ago, I was a die-hard commitment phobe. The day Martin and Ingrid came by the office, they showed me a photo, just a casual lock screen shot of the two of you. She looked over at Ethan and smiled. And I don't know what it was, but something in my chest just shifted. All I could think was, yep. That's him. That's my person. And if it's him, then marriage doesn't sound so bad at all. Her eyes shimmered. The night you agreed to date me, I didn't sleep a wink. I posted a private status that said, something to do. Someone to love. Something to look forward to. When you proposed, kneeling with that ring, I wanted to thank God 100 times. For sending me you. I vow to love only you, for the rest of this life. Loyalty isn't just a promise, it's who I am. Ethan's eyes were wet. So were half the guests. Vivian was in Norway on business. She checked into a quiet hotel by the fjords. The wind smelled like salt and rain. Down in the restaurant, she ordered dinner alone. And that's when she saw them. Not more than 10 feet away, him. Still unmistakably Ethan, though his hair had silvered slightly at the temples. Next to him sat Alice, radiant as ever. Across from them, a boy of about 8 was crossing his arms and pouting, his features mirroring Ethan's almost perfectly. Mom, the boy huffed, why is it when Dad says he wants to see the ocean, you drop everything and bring him here? But when I asked 2 days ago, you said we had to wait for summer break? You love him more than me. Ethan chuckled, about to intervene. But Alice gently raised a hand and tousled her son's hair, smiling with a twinkle in her eye. Oh, sweetie. This isn't favoritism, she said. This is love. When your dad told me he wanted to see the sea, something in my chest just ached. I had to go with him. If I didn't, I'd regret it all day. Because he's mine. And I love him like crazy. Vivian froze in place, watching a family she would never be part of. The laughter. The inside jokes. The peace. She stood there for a few moments too long, heart caught somewhere between pride and pain. And then, without approaching, she turned and walked out into the cold Norwegian air. Outside, tears slipped quietly down her face. But this time, she didn't interrupt. She didn't cause a scene. She simply whispered to herself, with no one listening but the sea breeze. Ethan, knowing you're alive and well, that's enough for me. I'm sorry. If there's a next life, let me be the one to love you first.